Of that you. Go ahead and get this meeting started. Thank you all for joining us for our Common Council special meeting. Today is Thursday, January 16th, 2024, and it is 9:01 a.m. Just a reminder, if you're in-house here, please mute your cell phones. And if you're on Zoom, just keep your mic muted until called upon or until you're speaking. Amy, will you go ahead and do a roll call for us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Giordani?
Yes.
Council President Shea?
Yes.
Councilmember Obanoff?
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Mahoney?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Reed,
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here. Thank you. Notice of agenda compliance for Idaho Code 74-204. Finding that the special meeting notice and agenda were posted in accordance with Idaho Code 74-204 within 24 hours prior to the meeting at the City of Bellevue City Hall, Post Office, and on the city's website on January 15th, 2025.
Mayor,
I move-
Go ahead,
I
Tammy.
move that the meeting was posted in accordance with Idaho Code 74-204.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Call for conflict is outlined in Idaho Code 74-404. Any conflict with anything we see for today's meeting? Okay. Then we will go ahead and move right into starting our work session here.
Okay. All righty. So thank you all for coming. This is new year, new council. I just kind of want to get the ball rolling and make sure we're all on the same page and we're all moving in the same general direction. So first off, we're going to just kind of go through some housekeeping items on meeting preferences. Again, we're really thankful for you guys committing your time and serving the community and being on council. We do have expectations that you are prepared for meetings and have read the packet and all that. So first off, is there anything staff can be doing to make your lives easier on that front to make sure that you guys can be as prepared as you can?
Packets earlier in the week, if we could have it by Monday, Tuesday, to like fully dissect all the information.
I think the goal right now is Wednesday.
Great,
And then if we could, then let's see how Wednesday goes.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then we could see if we could pull back and further to Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of the earliest it would
Yeah.
happen, but the goal is Wednesday right
A
now.
lot of this
Thursday, Wednesday.
section is writing checks for Amy to cash.
Yeah.
So I want to be careful on making too many promises.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like Christina was saying, Wednesday's kind of what we're aiming for right now. And there's the process that goes into it that
Yeah.
behind the scenes that you really have to meet.
I understand, and then setting
Yeah.
agendas, I got, yep.
Excuse me, I think, I find that a lot of the materials that are included in the packet are not properly curated, and thus the packets are far too long. They include information that should have been condensed into a single page and presented as an argument or an explanation rather than, and we were all guilty of this, so it's not any particular, but printing out web pages of pricing, or even in the case of ClearGov, including the entire packet, there were things that should have been extracted and presented to say, these are the arguments. And I don't know if it's possible with the creation of, what's required, but with the technology we're employing, there's a lot of additional information that I don't know that you have to print in the packet. I don't know the rules, but even then we can link to those proposals online, the full proposal, but the information that should be included for immediate distillation and what the arguments are in the packet. If you want additional information, you can look further if you find the arguments lack, are not compelling, but to suddenly go from 200 to 25 pages is a meaningful, actions where we can get through it more quickly, even if you can't get it out until Thursday.
And there was a couple things Brian and I had talked about that, like in terms of the legality for some of the things coming from the planning department have to be.
And maybe that's true,
But there are, there was also a discussion a little bit about, staff memos being, a little more robust. And then not relying as much on kind of a little more arbitrary secondary documents that would accompany them.
And is it possible in that construct that when you have the department head reports, that the presentation is live, but maybe the bullet points have been highlighted, and then the delving into that, it's more readily available through the tools, again, that we're providing. There's gonna be budget information, there are going to be milestones, and just wondering, isn't it our job to be keeping up on that? So we are already prepared before you even know the agenda. It's time for the department reports. They're gonna give their assessment, but we should have gone through what is readily available in the tools on a weekly, a monthly, whatever our requirement is for oversight. Does that make sense?
So kind of not necessarily including everything in the package, but instead, having, include ClearGlow, for example, just kind of that stuff that's just available for anybody anytime to go look at, and just expect you guys to.
Yeah, change our process to support and facilitate a more informed and incisive discussion at the table. They come in and present, that way we engage the staff gets to, ad lib even if they want, but we've looked, we should have questions based on how the project plans have proceeded in the last month. And we should, that's part of our job too, because in the past, we don't hear about it. So you can't strictly be relying on the department report to say, and this is where this is. We all have a tendency to not want to talk about things that aren't going particularly well. And now we're going to have the tools to examine that and then see how our department heads perceive their departments are doing in that month.
Right, and I see what you're saying, Suzanne, but this last meeting, for example, and I was flipping through and I got just messed up on the ordinances because there was so much in between, so I don't know on the organizational level, that full part of the packet of the full book, maybe that's in the back and what we're going through and the key points, and this is how much it is, and the breakdown instead of
So kind of all this, that hefty, if there are supporting documents, or maybe in a back section of the binder.
yeah.
And as you're flipping through the binder, and this is good feedback for Amy, as we're flipping through the binder, it's she breaks them out item 9,
Appendix.
item 10, and then it's like an appendix, kind of, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds like a good option.
Yeah.
And then that kind of takes us to preferences for printed versus accessing online, and kind of thinking about how you guys would like information presented to you. Of course, the packet's coming to you digitally.
Mhm.
And then we have, paper typically in-house for meetings, but if someone, prefers to bring their laptop over printing paper, you can also let us know individual preferences if they exist in terms of packets.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of bringing my laptop was appropriate for council meetings, not, so I didn't know, because the paper, I like having my notes in front of me, right? So if I can have my laptop, that's great. But also, I like writing notes in my binder. I certainly doesn't try there.
You can have a note section.
Yeah, I think it all is, individual on how you can most effectively participate, so.
Right.
I don't see any issue in that. And then maybe, with yours, it's just, you don't need all the appendix stuff printed, you have on your laptop kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Can we always call up a document onto the screen too?
That was
You wanna
something, yeah.
alert someone to page 10 on this.
Exactly, always being on the same page, and it doesn't.
Right,
But
and then so
it's-
for people in the calls, so they can see that, because that was the other thing, sitting in the crowd so often, I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? And for our general public to know what to reference, right?
Yeah, because I think that, our last meeting, you're on page 10, and that was great reference for everyone in the room, and then if it was something we could pull up onto the screen.
Mhm.
Is that easy-ish to do?
I know with Adobe, I don't know with Kofax, if there's a way to just quickly, once you've assembled a packet, to add page numbers to the bottom so that there is a definitive turn to page 6.
Yeah,
Cause
Okay.
sometimes it gets confusing when it's the assembly of 50 different documents that all have a page 6. But I think we can do that. And then, putting it up on the screen is very easy.
and then I think is maybe something Suzanne or someone in this group had brought up about using the screens a little bit more for when we're discussing information. And just kind of leaning on slightly more presentation-based discussions and communication, so that it's also better for people who are in-house, who
Mhm.
are kind of able to follow along with us a little bit better as well.
The audience.
Yeah, the audience, yes, and staff.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly, and you've done that so well with your presentations, you're just like, here we go. And we're all looking at the same thing.
So maybe moving in that direction, and that could be using simple tools that already exist, and then as we grow using the technology we're implementing on the back end, we'll find hopefully that can make it a little bit easier too moving forward.
So, we've been having a lot of special meetings the last month or so. When things kind of stack up on the agenda and there's things that we need to get done, you guys.
Second, we've got
Oh,
Tony. Thank you, Tammy. Tony, I see your hand raised if you wanted to say something.
Oh, thank you. Just wanted to add, if possible, when the packet does become available earlier in the week, if I were to get the packet as well, or if it was posted publicly, not just for the council, that would be very helpful in planning my previous stories of the meetings.
Of course. And Tony, just so you're aware, yes, it's online, but we have launched a newsletter that will be going out Fridays before city council meetings. So
Yeah.
I'm also happy, I don't know if you're on that email list, but I'm happy to add you to that email list as well.
Yeah, please do. I did notice, I read the last one, it was helpful, and I really appreciate the anecdotes from the departments and things that don't often transpire during the meetings. So thanks for pointing that out, and thanks for doing that.
Yeah, perfect. We'll add you to that mailing list.
Okay.
Yeah, you were talking about special
so-
meetings.
There's gonna be times that we have a bunch of stuff on the agenda that needs to be done before a deadline. Do you guys want to have one big long regular meeting, or should we split those up into a shorter regular meeting and a special meeting? What's your guys' preference as far as?
Sorry.
For me, I guess it's one longer meeting because managing multiple working full time, and then, yeah, so splitting that up. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would offer about that is that sometimes just very quick stand-up meetings, depending, I guess it really depends on the type of meeting, something that involves a lot of discourse, but versus other things that are stand-up, we used to call them stand-up meetings, and was once a week or in the middle of the week, ensure there are no blockers to process and that everybody's going in that direction. But maybe that's really more of a tool for the mayor with department heads and things, and that we're dealing with things that are more.
I would suggest, things where we have like land use planning type cases where you have public, or place where there's public comment, that we have at least 2 meetings for those. So we have the first meeting where we do staff report, maybe the applicant report, some question answer, and then reserve the public comment for another meeting so people have a little more time to think about it. And I think it's probably more productive that way.
So kind of like informational, and
Yeah.
then a
Because
secondary
people are
hearing.
getting the packets Fridays,
Yeah.
maybe Thursdays, and they've got their weekends to delve through some of this stuff, so it might answer a lot of people's questions that show up on Mondays, and then if they still have more, they kind of make their comments at the next meeting. I think it's more of I think people are more informed that way.
I guess if I had to express a preference, I probably would go, and I have some flexibility in my schedule, so it's, keep that in mind, so a little bit maybe different than some folks, but there was a consultant one time who said, yeah, if a meeting goes longer than 2 hours, it's gonna start to deteriorate. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, maybe 2.5, but after a while, it just starts to deteriorate.
Sure.
And looking through old minutes, meetings that went till 11 o'clock or late, that's not productive. And it's better from my perspective to say, yeah, we're gonna call it good tonight. We're gonna think about this, or we're gonna keep it open for additional comment or something like that, and then come back. I mean, I know there are timelines and sometimes you have to do it, but other times, just a little flexibility is a good thing.
I found just anything past 2.5, like once we got to 8 o'clock, it was like, whew. So yes, I'm in that kind of 2 to 2.5 hour. And that's something as we're building agendas too, we can kind of pay attention to. And there may be 1 hour meetings occasionally, but I think we have to probably swing a little bit more into that 1.5 to 2 hour zone typically with a lot of things we have coming up. But I feel like as I'm hearing, that's a little better than us grabbing special meetings. You know, or adding special meetings here and there, so. Okay.
And I just wanna make sure, I sat through a bunch of them, and you're right, if it goes too long, but especially depending on what the subject matter is, if it warrants a special meeting, then we should afford it a special meeting. These are serious decisions that we're making, so if we try to jam it in a regular meeting, it's never effective, and then we maybe make decisions that we wouldn't have, because we're tired, we feel rushed, we feel, if we're rushing, those are bad decisions we're making, if we're trying to push stuff through, and I don't wanna be doing that.
Something we did in McCall that I would suggest, we had a agreed on cutoff time of, I think it was 8:30, that we'd get through whatever agenda item that was, and then the mayor would ask the council, how y'all feeling? Do you want to keep going, wrap it up, or should we just cut the agenda and move it to the next meeting?
Mhm.
And just
Yeah.
have that escape route.
And maybe the agendas are set up in a way that, you know, oh, we got a critical item that we
Yeah.
haven't attended to, and we're gonna have to, you know, they're
But, yeah.
earlier in the meeting or something.
That was, something I wanted to kind of ask, this group is if we do have, you know, kind of a public hearing or something that would take a lot of public comment on, preference on where that sits in the agenda. Sometimes it's been at the front of it, sometimes in the middle, sometimes at the end. Being a new council, just thinking about, you know, as we move past the consent agenda, when we have people who are joining us kind of in City Hall or on Zoom, sometimes it's nice to do that at the front end to kind of, you know, take care of the public hearing and the public comment section, and then do a little bit more of, you know, either the housekeeping or other discussions after that, in case people would like to get home, or there are preferences on placement of public hearings to kind of honor the participation of our citizens.
I 100% support that, because the tactic of having public hearings and public comment at the end of meetings, it was actually a tactic in Los Angeles to try and outlast the residents. And they would people would fade off, they'd have to get home, they'd have stopped in, so it's definitely resident facing when you say, hey, we prioritize your engagement.
Diane, I saw you had a hand up.
Yes, I did. I think it's important for us to make sure that if we have a public hearing on the agenda, we should try and do that. We should try and take care of public hearings first. A lot of times, a representative, you know, is contracted, or, you know, they have people that they've hired to represent them. And if they have to sit through an entire meeting, it's kind of a waste of their money. And so, you know, I think it's important for us to try and have those public hearings first.
I only thought something like 5:30 for people who are working. A lot of people don't get South Valley until 6:30, so I don't know how you time that for public comment. So in previous, like, when there's been big issues, a lot of people have come to me and said, I can't get there at 5:30. I don't get off till 5, and the traffic is backed up as soon as they can get down to Bellevue to 6, so.
We do typically have, like, you know, claims, consent agenda, all that, which
Right.
push us a little, but that's
Yeah.
something to be conscious of. If
Yeah.
it's something, you know, we're taking quite a lot of comment on, maybe stacking one thing above it to just bump it a little bit past 6. So thank you for that feedback. Brian, I see that there might be 9 people not joined.
I think that's you all.
Okay, great, thank you. So I just want to make sure we weren't leaving anybody out of the discussion.
Is this an appropriate time also? And I don't know if this is part, but, you know, every meeting seems like it should be an opportunity, if the time affords, for engagement with whatever residents have come. And I know there's the public comment part, but then there's, you know, and maybe that's sometimes why public comment needs to come, but the public comment says, comments not on this agenda. And so we've turned, a meeting's transpired, they've heard some discussion, and sometimes there could be pertinent, you know, feedback at that particular time, or things they want to bring up to report incidents. Is there value or the possibility, there is value, but is there the possibility of adding public Q and A for the last 20 minutes of the meeting, or however much exists after completion of the meeting. So for people who are here, they can engage with the people at the table in a back and forth, not the public comment where nobody was, you just stare back at them.
That'd be a Brian and Rick question in terms of,
Yeah,
is there any kind of,
I think,
precedent for that? In
That
terms of
seems like
meeting
an
structure?
after meeting. thing.
Yeah, at the end of the meeting.
And I mean, like, not part of the meeting, but, like,
You know what, you might be right, it's part of that, some of us hang out,
Emailing and-
some of us hang out and say, hey, we're available for questions for 30 minutes.
And
So
or
maybe
emailing.
a lot of the questions, I think, they're pretty complicated, and trying to solve them on the spot right then is going to be very difficult.
Especially if they're angry.
Yeah, and so I think like receiving comments, receiving questions, and then having a follow-up plan of, let's talk with staff, let's give it a couple days and think on it and go from there.
So potentially
some-
meet the goal by responding
Yeah.
to public comment in a timely fashion. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
Well, for some things, I think, it's kind of some issues kind of demand, maybe call for maybe some public comment during the, you can always ask if people want to comment on it, but for some of our quasi judicial type hearings or land use decisions, there is a public comment section. And if you open it back up again, then you have to give the applicant time to rebut something if new information comes out. So you either have to reopen it to new public comment. So you kind of need to do those kind of in an orderly fashion in a process, but for just regular agenda items, it's kind of up to city council, how they want to proceed.
I have noticed sometimes in meetings, like when the room is full and when there are items that that don't fall in the quasi judicial, category that we're just talking about. I've noticed, you can kind of sense in the room when there's an opportunity to add public comment to the agenda item. So I would say kind of, myself and the council could make that assessment from meeting to meeting. And then what I would recommend is maybe adding something to some last statements at the end of the agenda that says, if you have any comments on things that you've heard tonight, and we can direct people to email addresses or the public comment button on the website. And that way, like Brian was talking about, it gives a little more time for us to engage staff, answer questions in a more complete and thorough way, and get back to citizens. So I think there's a couple layers, but it's a great point.
Well, that sounds like a great,
And I think just kind of utilizing those two tools in meeting and after meeting, kind of written comment would be the best way to move forward.
That sounds good.
And I'll also add that Mayor Giordani is starting to do some town halls coming up.
Yep.
That'll be another opportunity for that more direct one-on-one engagement process.
The mayor has like kind of complete discretion on when to open something. I sense we need public comment, or a council person says, I think we need to open this. This kind of wide open discretion about doing that.
I mean, unless Rick tells me otherwise, I believe.
I don't, like I said, unless you're like in lupus stuff, you gotta kind of be.
I mean, it's nice to have that flexibility.
Yeah,
Well,
Let's say,
yeah,
you
let's
totally
let's talk
have
about this.
flexibility, there's no rules on that. I mean, like I said, unless you have somebody there has something at stake and then they've left, and then you're taking information on it and they haven't had a chance, then you're kind of violating their due process rights. So
I'll just segue that into written public comment deadline. This is something that's been brought up, that just something that we want to outline kind of on the agenda, and or communicate in the newsletter. If we are receiving written public comment ahead of a council meeting, I would like to have a cutoff time, Monday at noon, Monday at 3 p.m. Sometime that feels appropriate for council and for staff to be able to collect all those public comments and then get them to us before the meeting that evening, so that we can actually read them, digest them, be able to react to, citizen participation in a timely fashion before we come into the meeting. So my recommendation would be at noon, just since our meetings are at 5:30, and then that gives, Amy, or Brian, whoever's receiving public comment, time to compile them, get them out to council and get them in our packets as well, so that they're on the record. But that might be, I think we kind of have to have a hard time, kind of a deadline. And then if we do receive comment after that deadline, it can be included in the record, but not, present to you for the meeting. So I wanted to see what people's feedback was on that.
Well, I would actually ask now, when we look at the public comment and you're looking at it and saying it's very difficult to manage public comment that comes in after the fact that needs to be included in packets and things like that. And so that's a perfectly valid point. I guess one of my questions is, based on past history with public comment, are we even clear the role of public comment in decision-making at this point? I mean, how is it weighed and valued in the process, right? We've had a lot of public comment that typically, at least in many of the public hearings related to text amendments and things like that, conceptually should have killed those things. And instead, it really hasn't. And so what is the role of public comment in decision-making for the council? Like, does it have a weight? Does public comment have more weight than something else, or how are we using it? Other than saying, oh, that was really interesting, nobody wants this, but let's have another meeting about it, right?
I mean,
Is this the right forum for this
Right,
discussion?
sure.
Okay.
yeah, and
This whole thing is.
That's what, okay.
Yeah, and I'm, curious in exploring that too, where it's like, there is a large population within our community that works 3 jobs and they don't have time to make public
They
comment,
do.
but, well,
They need to, right? If you want representation, you have to participate in the process. Oh, and that's what's been the argument, right?
right, and
So
right, and so as a council member and people coming to me, and I come to the group and I voice what people who are working 3 jobs, and they're like, we want to be represented this way, we need housing, right? But, then there's people who have the public comment, but if people are the loudest people in the room, then does that give them priority? I don't necessarily think so.
Well, I think that's part of the discussion.
Right?
It's- So if the people
Yeah.
vote, but only like we've seen it before, 400 people in Bellevue typically vote across, and then every now and then we have a spike. So we've established in Bellevue that whoever does vote wins, even if it's only 400 people. Is that also a process we're looking to circumvent? Because you're right, if
I
you're
think
either
that's just in
participating or
Bellevue.
not.
I think that's on it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying, right,
Yeah,
it's a
that's not how it
precedent
works.
where you seek your representation and you voice your opinion, otherwise and I'm not discounting your collection, so basically we're saying, what are the different methods of collecting opinion? But at what point, like, why bother a public comment if somebody, Tom or Jessica or I are gonna come in and say, well, all the people I've spoken to want this, right?
I think you have
Well,
6
here's an
representatives.
example,
Okay.
Suzanne, so if somebody's got a piece of property zoned for a particular type of business and they apply for that type of business, just because people don't want that business, unless we're willing to pay them, because it's a taking. If if the public comes out and says, I don't want this business here, if you guys deny it just based on public comment, we could be sued.
Yeah, well, I'm not disagreeing with that, I'm asking what the
And so-
role is.
So if you want to
So-
wait public comment, I mean.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, where does it fit in the
It's
process?
just, it is what it is. You guys are elected, people elected you to make decisions. And unless they throw you out of office, then I would assume maybe they're happy with the decisions that you're making.
I would say each individual council person, I go back to this, has their metrics in which they are going to make decisions, and they are going to weigh decisions. I think we have seen public comment swing throughout the last year in kind of styles of public comment. I'm not discounting canned response public comment, but we have seen versions of that where it is people signing on to kind of scripted public comment. We've seen individual public comment written in. We've seen people make public comment in City Hall. And so I think that it is the responsibility of each council person to determine their metric and weight of, how they receive public comment, how they weigh it against their decision-making, and how they feel they are representing their constituents who have, voted them into office. And so I think it is the duty of the city to properly present public comment to council members, and for packets and for record. And so that's kind of what we're talking about, is kind of what does that look like from a logistics kind of expectations and timeline standpoint. And then from there, as we see, you know, we might see the way public comment changes throughout the year, engagement changes throughout the year. That can be a, you know, discussion within council meetings to say, you know, how are you factoring that in your decision, Tammy? Tom, you know, we received 30 comments. How does that weigh on, you know, what you are thinking here? And I think that can be part of the discourse, and that's an individual metric that each council person.
I think that's a
brings to the
great
table.
explanation.
Yeah.
And it goes right to your point of saying we need them by noon so they can be properly presented. So
Yeah, of course.
I guess I don't have a problem with a deadline, because I appreciate it. If people are gonna read them, you need them in advance. One kind of, but on the other hand, someone might show up at a public hearing and they say, I'm not really much of a public speaker, but I have these 5 thoughts and it's 2 pages. I would like to submit that to council. Or they have comments that they make and they just summarize them, but there's more points made in these written comments. Or they come in at 5 o'clock instead of noon. I'm still interested in those, I guess.
Mhm.
And so one way kind of to address that I've seen previously is say, well, to receive adequate consideration, they should be in by noon. Because otherwise we are not gonna have time really to review them. But that's kind of a soft deadline, honestly. You know, it doesn't preclude them coming into a hearing
Of course.
and saying, here's my written comments. And we might think they're great, but if we don't consider them because they weren't in by noon, I think that's unfortunate.
And I think what I was kind of commenting on is it would not be considered, but I like your word adequate consideration. You know, we will always do our best to have them presented, printed, things like
Yes.
that. I mean, if they come in after 5:30, once the meeting has, you know, taken place digitally, that's a different situation. But I think the delineation between, you know, the adequate consideration versus, of course, they're still accepted. Just, you know, giving people fair time to process the comments and be able to utilize them in their decision-making as council members.
Well, I think,
Yeah, so
I think that circles back to my point I made earlier. I think I think we have more value in public comment when we have public comment type hearings, that we maybe iterate them a little bit so that there's a presentation aspect of it, and then people have time to think about it and get more meaningful comments in based upon.
the decision isn't made that.
Right,
night.
right, not that, right. Sometimes, some stuff you can probably do it, they're pretty simple, almost ministerial type things, but there's some things that I think you get more value if people have more time to think about it and then make their public comments. And so, and then you guys get better information, because there is a lot of good information out there from our public that they bring up issues that we didn't think about or something like that, so.
So yeah, a couple things that I was gonna add, so like Tom was saying, like have the deadline, but then still accept it. What we've typically done in other cities is have that deadline, and then after that, they're printed out, and when I give my staff presentation, I'll say, there are additional comments, would you guys like a few minutes to sit and review those, or should we keep moving? And so you guys kind of have that option at that point. And then another thing is just on the mail notices and probably not the newspaper because that costs money, but the mail notices and the signs have some best practices on, you want to participate in the process, here's how you do it, here's how you engage it, and here's like how it's going to be meaningful. And how, like, so just gotta have that.
Speaking of those notices, like since we have social media, from what I understand from my booklet, is that since we have social media, we should be posting those online as well, on social media. So I don't know if there's a condensed bullet point that's just easy, like this Monday's upcoming meeting. Because I helped manage it before, but I don't have the time to manage.
So the agenda.
Just
We
posting
can add
as
that
many
into-
places as possible, right? Posting as many places as possible that we have.
Correct, yeah, so from what I understood in reviewing the whole standards and policies on meetings, special meetings, or any of that, if you do have social media, that needs to be posted.
I don't know if there's a function in MailChimp when we send out the
Yes.
newsletter that has the agenda.
We're supposed to publish there. I just need to get the login
Okay.
for
Well, I
you.
was gonna say,
So when the
is there
newsletter
a
goes
social option that just says, here's the newsletter with the agenda that
Yes.
automatically goes to our account?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just didn't apparently plug it in properly.
okay.
I need to log in, but absolutely it does to Instagram and Facebook and,
Yeah, I'll put you on Meta, I'll put both of you on there so then you can manage that, cause Amy's on there, but the business manager, and then it just, everything should just automatically.
great, and it will
post in
automatically
both
post.
places.
And then that will change too within staff of who
Yeah.
will manage that as well once we get everything.
Great.
Perfect, thank you. Well, unless there's a little bit more kind of in that housekeeping category, and if things pop up as we kind of go through this, feel free to comment on that. I'd love to move on to kind of item B, our 2024 achievements and updates on ongoing projects.
Also, note there's snacks and
But yes,
coffee.
there are snacks
Yes.
and coffee for
Refills.
everyone in the room who.
I know, I saw that over in
That's
the corner and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Bellevue.
That's right.
That was
Thanks,
Brian.
guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Brian.
I'm gonna just do that.
Please do.
Real quick.
And-
Tony has another.
oh, Tony, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that was an accident.
Okay, no problem. All right, so let's, there's a little, maybe a button in the back.
I know, I'm just not. Thank you. I'm not, good at this function.
Okay, so we're just gonna kind of look at, what's been achieved and going well, and then kind of that gives us a little bit of a basis to start off with our kind of goal setting for 2025. Kind of one of the top things that was a great achievement for 2024 was staffing all of our department heads positions. And it's kind of moving into this year with every department having a department head, and having kind of oversight within those departments, and now kind of management within those departments, and someone to refer to, rely on, someone to be managing projects within those departments. So just kind of a really great achievement for Bellevue after the last few years of kind of being quite bare bones and relying a lot on contracted services. So really moving in that direction of keeping things in-house, contracting as necessary to fill any voids, but kind of the decision-making, the day-to-day coming from people within our community, living in our community, seeing what's happening in Bellevue on the day-to-day. So I'm very happy about that. Second thing is, it's a kind of something we started at the end of last year, and we're gonna roll into, is moving in the direction of more transparency. More open communication within our community to our constituents, and then also more open communication within our departments, now having everything staffed. Making sure that there are appropriate staff meetings happening on a regular basis within City Hall, cross-department communication, which allows for more cross-department accountability between staff, and then that accountability will then kind of go back out into the community. So thank you for your approval on Monday night of some technology to help us support staff in moving in that direction. A couple things that we kicked off at the beginning of the year was a newsletter, which I know has existed in the past. We didn't reinvent the wheel, but we reinvigorated something that the community really enjoyed many, many years ago, and gave very easy access to information that they had come to appreciate in years past. So just bringing that back and adding a little bit more depth to it, where some updates from departments and, palatable information about things coming out of streets or public works or building and zoning, and kind of trying to, piggyback on Rick's idea of breaking out the information to have more effective public hearings. Not just posting the agenda, but pulling some more of the complex information off the agenda, and giving a little bit more anecdotal, factual, kind of broken down information that's digestible to the community, so that they're not reading through 20 pages trying to kind of understand everything. We're giving them a little bit of an overview information about what they could engage in. So that right there, and then moving away of using our online tools to create more information for the public, more information, for staff collaboration and accountability, and kind of project management tools. Little bit on water and sewer updates. Some positive things that previous Mayor Johnson had kind of pushed us forward with is moving in the direction of doing an ICRIMP, insurance claim to get working on the, getting the sewer plant back online. That was a very kind of long, arduous process to get that claim started. We have activated the first step of that claim, which is electrical work down at the sewer plant. And that work did start Monday of this week. So the electricians are out actively working on kind of solving the electrical issues that happened when the plant went down. And with that, once it's kind of the first step to get those fixed and then do another layer of analysis if needed of once all that electrical is firing, what else, what else needs to be fixed? What's the next step that needs to be fixed? So understanding that, that took quite some time to get that going, but with the ICRIMP insurance claim now happening, and the authorization to basically rebuild the plant back to what it was, which is what the insurance claim is offering in terms of pavement. We now have our public works director down managing that and kind of monitoring the contracted electrician work. And he'll be reporting back to us as that process happens. It's about a 3 to 4 week process on that electrical work. And water updates. We did pass the bond in 2024, which kickstarted our water project. With the weather, we're at a bit of a standstill on terms of kind of next steps, just because survey needs to happen. And unfortunately, a lot of the landmarks are covered in snow at this time. So we'll see kind of movement on that in the spring. So that's kind of just a couple of the accomplishment level 2024 water and sewer updates. Next one would be the onboarding of Cassell. That is something that we have been discussing. And it took kind of great work from our treasurer, again, having that department head take on a project and get to work on getting that implemented. So we're very close to flipping the switch on Cassell and that being operational here in the next, I would say, I don't want to put Shelley's timeline for her, but from what I'm hearing, month should be, there. We're very, very, very close, which will increase the efficiency and kind of remove some of the human error in the billing process for water and sewer, and increase a lot of the efficiencies in the treasury and kind of accounting department. So we look forward to that, and that all, of course, then ties back into a lot of the monitoring, metering, and work that will happen within water and sewer. And then last one would be the transportation master plan, and Brian's been spearhead on this.
Just so you guys are all informed on it, it's kind of living in the background at the moment. We received a grant from the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council, also known as LTAC, to do $75,000 for a transportation master plan. We've hired Forsgren and Associates to do most of the work on that. They're our consultant. They were out in November collecting data on road conditions and sidewalk conditions and stop sign locations and speed limit and all our signs and what kind of posts they're on and how tall those posts are, and they're all over the place, that sort of thing. And so then this spring and summer, we're going to be doing some public outreach, going to assembling a advisory committee on that process, and it should be getting written and adopted. We're aiming for spring or summer of 2026. So.
Can you clarify just for us, kind of the value of having a transportation master plan?
So I mean, we are expecting growth. We have maintenance needs. We have a lot of deferred maintenance, all that. Right now, we don't have great data on what those things are and what we need to be prioritizing and anticipating in the future. So it's having a transportation plan that has all that data and has some expert guidance on what we should be focusing on as far as our next initial investments and, improving, bike and ped, facilities and safety, also, all those things are kind of come into it, and it helps us make decisions on budgeting and land use and all sorts of things in the future.
It's also required for a lot of grants.
Yep,
that we would
Yep,
do,
it helps
so.
us leverage other grant funds.
And I might have missed it. When do we expect it, the completion of that?
The summer of 2026,
2026.
2026,
I believe.
the survey to be completed,
No,
your plan
the
to be
plan
completed,
to be adopted.
the plan to be adopted. Got it.
There was one done a number of years ago.
I think 2008.
Well, we do a lot of plans and then we don't do anything. We like
No,
to spend
no,
money.
I
like that.
respect that. I just was wondering if you are using any of that, you know how, I mean, obviously, using any of that as a reference.
Yep, the consultants have been provided with that information. It's kind of the baseline of this is what we had adopted and had implemented out of that plan and then kind of build on it.
How often are transportation plans updated? Because we've talked about like how often comp plans should be updated. So how often are transportation plans updated?
Kind of similar, 5-10 years.
Does that include the highway? I mean, I know it's sort of ITD's highway.
ITD, you know, it kind of falls into a special category, but yeah, it is within city limits. It is transportation infrastructure that we use and need, and so it is part of the plan.
Anything from previous council that you feel from years past that we might have missed that kind of touching on 2024 achievements that you'd like to add to the category?
Community events in Bellevue, and then also thanks to Tammy and with the crisis hotline and the Neighbors Helping Neighbors, because her organization helped fund those. So she partnered with myself and the events committee, like we created an events committee part of the library to, because that was the one thing when I was campaigning the previous fall, was hearing from so many people, they're looking for more ways to connect in our community that aren't just going to a restaurant or a bar. So like partnering for the ERC and having the cleanup, but having a band and partnering with the county to, you know, waive those fees. I actually, need to follow up with them because I was hoping for this year's cleanup to do a bigger impact in removing a lot more items, but I have to coordinate with that. So I think like to continue with events within our community, I think has been really important. And I've heard so many people just, or also like the turnout for the Christmas tree lighting this year. I feel like it was double from last year, which was amazing, from like the collaboration with social media and people putting it out there, and everybody had a great time. We have some lighting and music speaker things to work on, but other than that, it was great.
Even that Halloween.
Oh, and
Even though
even
we
the
had
Halloween.
all that, all the snow, and there were close to 200 people that came out.
Yeah, that was the first time I've seen almost, it was really full. That was the other thing too, like getting everybody to come out and like, people wanting to stay in Bellevue. And that's the thing that I heard is like, I don't want to go north anymore. I want to stay in my community, but there's not anything happening in my community. And so just seeing everybody there was great.
I gave away almost 200 hot dogs. That's the only reason I know.
I won.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Your boot.
You did, and I made
Winner.
criteria about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great. Diane, anything you want to add from 2024?
I think you guys have covered all of it.
Wonderful.
Oh, also just housing and exploring those conversations and people being open to exploring what the future of housing looks like. I think that was just very important for our community and being part of the conversation with the rest of the valley. I think that was important. Establishing relationships, right?
Mhm.
Because valley-wide, I feel like we all need to start leaning on each other and communicating. So I think that was
I think that's great. Yeah. And I think to piggyback on that, more representation of Bellevue at the table and a lot of different valley-wide meetings, and kind of committees. I just think Bellevue representation in 2024, increased through, previous mayor and council members kind of, and staff stepping into a space of being at the table much more often than we've seen in the past, and that'll be hopefully, as we go into our 2025 focus areas, continuing to make sure Bellevue has a seat at the table, so.
And how does that work? You just say, "Oh, I'm interested," and you go, and we're all interested, we notice it and we all go, or?
Well, often it's responding to an invitation that you're already receiving and showing up. Just kind of being present at the meetings, we're part of a Resort Cities Coalition and always having a representative in the meetings there, housing authority meetings, having
And
somebody
the
go to that.
liaison for Lane County Housing Authority, so.
Yeah, so that's, as we progress into the 2025 focus area, a lot of that will be, once we identify our priorities, understanding what internal committees we have here within the city, and then external representation opportunities we have valley-wide, and kind of who within our representative team will represent Bellevue at those things, so.
How
that'll
about
have to do this
How about the
discussion.
airport?
That could be not part of the 2025 focus discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I've already made noises.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going, we're already going.
I will wrap up that little section B unless Brian had anything else to add to that. How's everyone feeling? Does anyone need to stretch, bathroom break, get a little coffee? Okay, get some water. Okay, perfect.
There's the water thing down there too, Tim.
Tom in the audience, Tom, hi. Please also feel free to have coffee or snacks as you need. They're not exclusive.
It's the child's cousin. You made the three have to check my phone.
No.
Grab you something?
I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna get to start.
Are you a banana or orange?
I think I'm okay. I'm high in it. I'll get there. Brian, do you want to kind of kick us off explaining kind of our process today?
Yeah. So what we're gonna do, you've all got sticky notes in front of you.
Brian, I can be your liaison. Oh, you got some.
The sticky proxy.
I can be your sticky proxy too. I can write things for you.
So we're gonna just write down what things we want to prioritize as far as getting started or completed in 2025. Nothing the government ever gets done in a year. So, all these things are gonna go longer than 2025. Don't be afraid to kind of say, I want to get this ball rolling. But just kind of go rapid fire, write down what you want to do.
What, we want to do individually or as a group?
As the city government, as the community.
Okay.
And then we're gonna take a couple minutes. I'm gonna rapidly rearrange them into a bunch of different categories, themes. If we have more than 6, so I'll ask you guys to kind of pare down a little bit, but hope we get, end goal is to get to 6 because there are 6 council members. And then I will take that, kind of write up an overview for the next council meeting of what we went through, what the goals are. And each of you is going to kind of be a champion for each one of these theme areas. And I'm gonna find you some things to keep you entertained with committees and groups and regional partnerships and that sort of thing.
So something that might be valuable too, tell me, Brian, if you agree with this, is kind of if you identify, if you feel like it's a short, mid, or long term.
Yeah, I think that
You
might
could
be.
kind of annotate that too, if it feels like it's kind of what I call sometimes the low hanging fruit, or things we can tackle pretty quickly. If it's kind of a mid-range goal, and or kind of something you see long-term, like Brian said, that kind of flows maybe into next year or might take a little time, but
Yeah.
we want to get started this year. And this can also, you can, you know, if you've got things, just start
Idea-
jotting them down.
Idea per sticky
Yeah.
one. And-
Yeah. And we can also discuss them as we're writing. You know, this is, you know, a collaborative exercise here, so.
Is this based on a common mission statement or we're making our own mission statement?
We are coming together for this year to
To
create
create
that.
the mission statement, okay, got it.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, the intention here is to set a focus for this year, which will then allow us to
Make a mission.
achievement statement, achieve those kind of collective goals. But I think it's, you know, we're all different elected officials and appointed representatives coming together with ideas from within our community, kind of to bring to the table here for the city of Bellevue.
And you said these are, how define the focus areas? Conceptually or as,
You can be as precise or broad as you want.
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of polish it down either direction.
okay,
Diane, do you wanna also, you can also text me or you can tell me and I can write them.
Okay, I mean, I do have a couple and I'm not quite sure how to do a virtual sticky note. So, do you want me to go ahead and state? Or
Yeah.
I'll
If it's not
text you.
disruptive, yeah, or text, I mean,
Put it in the thing, in the chat.
is there a way to do it in the chat? It's a good idea too.
That way you can capture it.
Do we have any kind of like?
I think the chat's
whiteboard or
turned off on the
anything
council
That we could,
So the
put
public
up on the
isn't.
wall?
We also have a computer, you know, we could pull up a note on there. And then I think it'd be nice to go through individually and read them.
Yeah.
Off and have you kind of explain your why too. So this is just a little bit of a brain dump real quick. We'll start talking through them and then as you're discussing, Brian can categorize.
Yeah, 7. Yeah.
That's a good start.
Okay.
Do it like this, Brian, so those are bigger.
That's 6. Okay, good. This is so fun and so collaborative. It just makes me so happy.
I'm going for it.
Well, some of them, you know, they kind of
Yeah.
be a little dot off, but that way I can remember better what I was talking about.
What? I just decided to brand new.
I know. You haven't gotten used to me yet.
I have a feeling I'll be doing more sticky note projects in the future, so.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, color preference.
It's worth- Yes, no,
I really wish I was in the room for this exercise. I just want you guys to know that.
I know,
Teenage
Di,
idiots.
I'm
breast
sorry.
cancer.
That's okay.
Go we're over it.
Okay, how are we feeling, you guys?
Definitely think with,
Ready enough to get started
Oh,
discussing? Tom, do you need a little more time? You doing okay?
I'm okay. I'm ready.
All right. Wait for Jessica to get back from the bathroom and then we can start chatting through them a little. Where do you want a sticky note?
What's that?
Which side?
I think over here, I'll probably.
Okay, perfect. I'll start us off with one of Diane's. I think maybe just go around one by one-ish. Okay. So first one, this is from you, Diane. If you want to chime in, please do. Downtown revitalization. Begin process to vacate some of the dead-end streets on west side of Main Street.
Affordable community workforce housing, number one.
If you have any questions as to someone's why, please feel free to directly ask. If, you know, we can have discussion.
me?
Yep.
No prescriptive transfer of wealth between residents.
Do you want to drill down on that a little?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should not have policies that codify a transfer of wealth between residents. Anything, you can't be taking from this group to subsidize another group, right?
Have you seen that play out to date? Have you?
It's all up and down the valley, right? It's whenever you take from the services or the fund, the money that is there that has been gathered assets of a community that is for services for all the residents. And then you take some of that and service a particular group exclusively or particular need exclusively without showing benefit to all the residents. So long as you
Suzanne?
can show benefit, sorry.
Do you have a specific example?
I could absolutely, but I would have to provide you the financials. But then example would be you make a choice and you say, we're gonna do that. And we'll just use Main Street because we've been talking about it, but it applies to anything. Or you could say, you know, nobody uses Pine Street, but we were to pave Pine Street and the only group it benefits are the people that live on Pine Street because nobody else uses that street, say. Then you've taken the assets of the community and used them to service exclusively a particular particular group. And when you do the analysis, you can't show how it would benefit the people in Chanterelle, how it would benefit all these other members of the community. You have to have an equal benefit across residents.
So you're saying if we do have an example of that transfer of wealth, in your opinion, from one group to the other, maybe instead of, because I think that's in a broad community sense, hard to kind of put a squash on. There's some financial backing or data to rationalize the why. and how
Exactly, it's just a method,
Okay.
ensuring we have a process that it says that we have integrity in this process and we're not seeking to redistribute wealth.
Is there a way in which we could kind of write it that would be more policy or process based?
Absolutely.
To kind of say, how do we,
It's a small sticky and prescriptive.
Yeah.
Prescriptive has a lot of words in this
so
definition.
maybe just
Okay.
kind of
To ensure-
yeah,
Yeah, and speak, like, if we're gonna be speaking to the general public, and I don't mean this in any way, because I could use terminology that is not relevant to what you guys are understanding, right? Because it's what I do in my business. But if we're gonna speak to the general public, we should be speaking more in general terms so that it doesn't look like we're driving down a lane that no one else will.
I agree, and if
And-
Brian had given me a bigger paper,
And,
I could have really gone to town.
as we drill down on these, actual tangible thing, achievable concepts.
Oh, absolutely, I thought we were kind of at,
No, no.
but maybe I went the wrong way, but
That's
to me,
great. That's why we're
we can't get a
discussing it.
mission, okay.
Yeah, just doing a little revision that makes it just
Okay.
slightly more of a tangible strategy.
Ensure.
Ensure all residents benefit equally from decisions.
From decisions and or services.
Yes.
Kind of thing, okay, great. Tammy?
Oh, gosh. Prioritize, and I may say things that I'm not sure where we are, so I put that little asterisk. Prioritize negotiations and plannings with our ACI.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Diane, did you hear that?
Is that this up here?
I didn't. Tammy, could you repeat that for me?
Could somebody else repeat that?
Yeah, no, I can say it louder. Prioritize, planning and negotiations around our ACI.
Take it, Jeff's been chatting with you.
Well, it only took us 20 years to get it, to get it established. So that's a process that I definitely think we need to follow because we did put a lot of time and effort into getting an ACI established.
And I think those updates will come from our community development department, and you will see more information about that, and we'll have, either staff updates or agenda items that will kind of come this year in regards to that.
Just another table to get back at.
Yeah.
Right, but I would say this is short term, maybe, but this a fully functioning sewer plant. Gotta treat that wastewater.
Oh, maybe we could throw in, like, when we have similar stickies, we could just
Go
like
for it.
pile them on.
Popcorn it.
Oh, I know, I gotta put my glasses on. Can we just, should we all just have like that was.
I mean, if you feel that
I
there's
have a
something that
similar
ties into that, go
one.
ahead.
Says
No, I have the
Create-
same, I just
create
find
the
out
plan,
stickies.
create the actual plan for the rebuild of the treatment.
Yeah. So basically a project plan for getting that sewer sewer
Thank
plant
you.
back online.
Well, and yeah, where are we? Yes.
And then what does yours say?
Mine says, like I
On
always
that
say,
sewer.
clean, safe, reliable, sustainable, affordable sewer services.
Don't know if those words are on there, but
Oh my, I know, I started like cutting them down. But I have a whole deck if you wanna know all my words.
Is that more of the long term? Like, that's more of the long term sewer plant.
I think I would categorize the plan, kind of the project management plan being short term.
Yeah.
And then implementation based on that being, some short, some mid, and some long range.
Yeah.
So kind of, but communicating what the plan is and, communicating to the staff, the council and the citizens, and then having implementation timeline. Because there could be elements that are long-term and there could be a little more short and mid. I think that after this electrical work, it should reveal some more information for us on what that timeline.
But we also need to see the plan of which that's a part of currently, right? How did you get to the belief system that rebuilding the sewer was, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but how was it established that this path was the right path? Right, that's all. So we rebuild exactly what's there. How is that the best choice? How is that determined? And is it still the path that should be followed based on new management of that department? Does that make sense? Like, how did you even decide that getting undertaking this project for the purpose of rebuilding what we already have was a better plan than a different technology or a different opportunity? Would like to know what the alternatives that were evaluated before this was pursued.
I think, yeah, I mean, I can touch on that a little bit, though. I think we are.
Well, you don't have to right now. I just want the thinking, like when we delve into these things.
Yeah, I think, acknowledging that the sewer plant has been down from a catastrophic failure since March of 2023 and poor management, and utilizing the tools available to us via a insurance claim to get the plant back and operational. So we're not relying on a lagoon system that was never intended to be relied on for this duration of time. And getting this back to operational plant that, even if we agree or don't agree, the way it was designed many years ago and engineered might not be the best for us moving forward. Right now, getting that operational and then looking at what the re-engineering might look like down the line, but moving away from kind of what was supposed to be a secondary system back into our primary system that existed, but all, open to further discussion on those. But I think prioritizing, a functioning service over the perfect service right now is the priority.
And I'm not trying to, I'm just saying,
No.
these are the topics because you could say as we examine our asset management and we find that, I think there's a great water system down there. I don't know I know it's been held for years, that Bryson or whatever won't let the water out. Was that something that was revenue generating for us? Are there gray water revenue generating opportunities down there? I just mean in the context of all of our asset management and understanding how it fits in. And
I think having adequate representation within the department and kind of a reliable point person to take on this planning with us within the city, clear, thoughtful explanations. And kind of, moving into delving more into that project. I think we can start to kind of, as a council and a community, start to require a little bit more information and dialogue around that.
Which I know you already are, so
that's a great, it's a great short, mid, and long term right there, because it's one of our core services as a city. So it has to be.
And that was a big
priority.
investment. That was a big investment.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's obviously a budgetary, sort of short, medium and long-term budgetary consequence there too.
Do you want to pop in, Jessica?
Yes, drivable, walkable, safe Main Street.
Diane had one, relocate the welcome to Bellevue sign.
Okay.
Di, do you want to touch on that? You're muted.
wait.
Sorry. This was one of the things that we talked about in our borough meeting on, what day was that, Brian? Tuesday? Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, everybody knows that sign is horribly located. It used to live on the other side of the highway, right next to Sweets Septic Company, and what a welcoming first business. And so I think that there's an opportunity for us to find a better location for that sign, or a new sign altogether. Apparently, Jamie Sluter did some work looking into our current sign, and it's falling apart and decaying. And so I think there's an opportunity out there for us to maybe do a call for artists to design a new welcome to Bellevue sign for us, and then find a good location for it to be located. And I think Bura, it sounded to me like they were interested in some funding for that project, if not all of it.
And have it made out of metal
Mm,
so that it doesn't decay as much.
Right, or if it rusts, then it looks even better as it
patinas,
ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
The Sage School has a gorgeous sign that's metal works and.
That's the
Emergency
Bellevue Cemetery
preparedness.
for that matter, a nice
Hmm?
metal sign. The Bellevue Cemetery has a nice metal sign.
Mm.
So,
And Suzanne just added emergency preparedness to that.
I think we all know that California is currently the poster child for systemic failure as well, and what can happen on top of the extraordinary power of nature. We had the fire roaring up through the triangle last year and almost down into Haley. And I think that we're ill prepared to deal with something catastrophic like that, not just as one of the primary egresses from the valley, right? But also to ensure that the trials and tribulations that are now facing those communities in the aftermath. There are postings on Nextdoor, there are articles throughout the various major papers about people without jobs now, right? And there is no way for them to recover. And, they're gonna have to move, and that's fine, but if you're a city that's prepared, then perhaps we've made choices that assured that our community had appropriate fire protections, that our people are prepared through our projects to know where they will go if they're burned out, to avoid situations like the Palisades in those areas are having of people armed on their property because there's been such a systemic failure, and the looting is so extraordinary. And so that type of preparation through our departments to make sure that we have a plan and that we would be able to begin rebuilding immediately and have a plan for our folks, so they know they would stay, that they could rebuild, or they'd already decided to leave and it wasn't a question.
I thought about emergency preparedness coming into this meeting as well, and thinking about how kind of exclusive city of Bellevue concept and plan, but I also think it's a great countywide initiative as well for county and community collaboration because of potential sharing of services, collaboration, and things like that.
I
So,
agree, but if I lived here, I'd want to be number one in my community. I want to make sure I get out before, I want to make sure our people get out before anyone else. I'm just saying.
yes, and what my statement there is Bellevue centric as well as county collaboration.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
So last year, last year I was reading that the fire started in Idaho. Like 200 and something were all man caused. And
Same
so,
as the
right, so it's like, okay, so it's education, so I think it's preventative and creating a plan, but also like accountability and education about what we're doing in our community. Like it blows me away that we allow fireworks anywhere around here. All it takes is the cottonwoods and we're up, or just like responsible gun ownership when they're out shooting. I mean, all the things, tying up your chain when you're going camping, like what it really means smoldering your logs and what that looks like. There's not a visual appeal of like, a lot of people just really don't know what they should be doing to, I know that one was like lightning started, but that one back there was.
I would
Yeah.
ask you to write it on your sticky note,
Yeah.
a little bit of that, like community, either accountability, education, just
public service announcements. Because they do a lot of those reminders, and the rangers are always up, like at Perkins and all that going around, and we've put out other people's fires that are up there and leave without, so there's no doubt.
and that is a little bit of cross collaboration too with tools and education information that might already be out there and just kind of how can we, you know, bring that together in, kind of a tangible way for our citizens? Is it newsletter? Is it social media? Is it, you know, does it go into our yearly timeline of reminders of, you know, pertinent information we want to communicate to our citizens?
Right, or working with the chamber and putting out for their visitors coming to town, like that this is what you should know when you're out.
Tammy, got one, Ron?
Review opportunities to increase revenue for the city.
Great, great. Diane, she had said review opportunities to increase revenue for the city.
Here's my sticky on that one. Just says the same thing, new revenue streams.
New revenue streams, exploring revenue. Can we think a little bit about what that looks like on how you'd like to explore new revenue streams?
I guess ideally, I'm not sure about, and there are opportunities for new revenue streams. But I'm interested in also looking at how we can increase our really our levy rate, or how we can increase our general fund. Not just try to add more specific things, but how we can look at if we're gonna prioritize these things, and we're gonna say we're prioritizing the city. I mean, it's an investment, not just from us, it's an investment from the city. When people move here or live here, they expect a certain level of service, right? And it's an investment. And so how can we get a campaign going that, as we're building the trust in the community and what we're able to accomplish, that we can't do it without appropriate revenue. So like, we want our streets better, we want these things better, but that we have to have, it's not free for anybody. And so how do we get the message out that we need to increase our revenue streams?
And so one priority that I wanted to bring was, looking at current revenue. We've talked a lot about assessing fees. Brian and I just kind of talked about that again this year, going into, you know, before our net budget season, actually having that fee assessment done between all departments. So looking at the efficiency of our current revenue, you know, making sure that our fees are accurate for the labor that it is taking to, you know, rent the park out, things like that. So strategy for me, focusing on the internal revenue that's, you know, already established, and making sure that it is correct, it is in line with what we need to be charging. So kind of current revenue, and then hearing from you guys other potential revenues. You know, that might be assessing, looking at lot taxes, other creative kind of paths we could go down. If there's any, you know, more focused ideas on that and how we can apply that into our budgetary planning, yearly planning, kind of how we could explore that a little bit further.
Well,
Looking at different businesses, like looking at what different businesses bring in your revenue and what we want to attract in the bigger picture, right? Like what that looks like. I mean, there's not a space at all for any people who work in tech in this valley, really, in collaboration. There used to be a space up north, but that, I forget what it was called.
Ketchum Innovation Center.
Yes, but like, you know, there are people who work in that space, but also like, I don't know, I see that being.
Come to my house. Clean my garage out for you.
I mean, you know.
No, I'm
well,
I get it.
my
I'm
husband
teasing.
and like certain friends I'm hearing in the community, there is a want and need, but also like from our younger folks of wanting to get into that type of an industry, but there's nothing, right? Like the space is doing their programs, but thinking about like things that aren't necessarily going to be hard on impact of like a lot of vehicles going in and out, but a space within Bellevue that could generate
To
revenue.
clarify, are you feeling that that's a city-led thing or something you'd like to encourage for private business?
Maybe something to encourage for private business.
And I would like to posit a couple of things,
Yeah,
but the first
yeah.
one is that I actually, and I believe the mayor's actually one of the leading drivers on this, but with some hopefully upcoming changes with work over at the library, and Kristen's phenomenal efforts over there, you know, there's already something called Tech Hub there that she got grants from and that we started early last, you know, at the beginning of last year, but she with some new possibilities that have been introduced with the things people have voted for, with the technology, with the new newsletter, with the new website and things like that. There are now going to be internship opportunities in that particular, that's technology based, that's looking for, she's already got interns and things like that over there, so
Great.
in that interest, there's something nascent coming. But what I would get back to about the revenue strategy, and I would ask us all to be considerate of, is that we charge best in class prices for our sewer and our water. Really, we are highest. As somebody colorfully stated during the campaigning of all of us, we're the most expensive place in Idaho to take a poop, right? So we charge best in class already, and we deliver substandard services. And so it's really hard to go to a community and say, hey, you need to pay more. I think we need to clean some house before we can look to generate more revenue from an already substandard performance. Because to me, the mission statement is to deliver clean, reliable, safe, timely services to the residents, and we're not doing it. And also affordable, excuse me, that's a key component. So I understand your point. And so yet we do need additional funds to do these things well. There have been missteps. It doesn't matter how they came about, that we have to rectify. So when we look at revenue strategy, we look at developing new revenue streams, right? We look at maximizing existing revenues, but we also have to look at better spending within the city. There's money spent on kind of pie in the sky, talk about. And I believe now with Brian here, and even with the software we're now implementing, Cassell has been implemented, but it was paid 4 years ago and nothing happened. That's not a good use of that money. Even if you just deposited it in a high yield savings, we would have made money instead of wasted money like that, right? So those types of choices. And when you look at some of the resident or the revenue streams or ideas, or assessing our current assets, right? We talked briefly about the sewer. It is a gray water system. I don't know the value of that, but that water must have value to somebody. I don't know if bringing that back online offers a new opportunity. When you talk about new ideas, you know, we love Main Street. We're all trying to figure out, including multi-dwelling, what have you, but they're part of a bigger picture. And is it possible that Bellevue becomes more of a cash-friendly Main Street, and that we go and cherry pick restaurants like that Sisters, so we can finally have barbecue down here? That, you know, but in doing so, Bellevue owns an ATM network, and we execute, and all of the businesses down here are on the Bellevue ATM network, and people withdraw cash, and it's for a lesser fee. Like concepts like that, whether the dump up in Haley will be full in about a decade. Should we be considering that asset out there as a potential dump and revenue stream? We've talked about,
You mentioned water back,
Yeah.
water back online.
The gray water system. We have gray water at the sewer, and it's been held for years, I think.
It's not a fresh water. It's
It's the gray water, but it's used for watering, and it's permitted in Bellevue. And the water thing for gray water residentially is a topic I associate with our sustainability of our residential water
Do you
system.
want to pop in, Timmy,
Yeah.
on that?
I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure I know, well, water and sewer are proprietary. So they are not general fund revenue streams. It's specific, it's charged. What we charge is based on what it costs to operate. Like in essence, that's how that works, specific to water and sewer. When I was speaking, sorry, going too fast. I'm speaking more on the general fund side. Like, to clarify that point, I'm speaking more on the general fund side that funds the rest of our operations, our streets, our police, our fire, our administration, everything else. And as far as, just to be specific, the gray water, we have a contract with Dan Brown, and that was already put in place because of everything that was done. But the level that we produce out of our wastewater treatment plant cannot just be, it has to be treated at a higher level to be able to apply it anywhere else. So at the moment, our wastewater is being properly dispensed the way we have contracted. So it's not, we don't have an opportunity at this time to do anything else with it because we're in a contract to allow Dan Brown to use it on his property in the summer. I mean, obviously during the winter, we restore it. That is how it's done. That's what rapid infiltration basins, that's how those lagoon systems are set up to operate.
Currently.
Yes, but I mean, that's the contract. And then again, even the biomembrane reactor plant, the level that we paid for and treat it at is not able to be applied any other way at this time. To the point of reestablishing it, and this is in general sense, I don't have, to the point of reestablishing the biomembrane reactor plant to operate at the level that it was meant to, right? It still is applied, can only be either applied to Dan Brown's property, which again, we've got where we're at, that's the contract. Or from there, we could increase the treatment, the level of treatment that we use down there at the plant to be able to then in the future look at renegotiating with, let's say, Clearwater Landscaping, the plant, something like that down there. But at this time, like, I guess what I would caution is to try to propose things or say things that aren't really vetted all the way through. It is not, those aren't viable things for us to consider. And it's important when we consider revenue that we are very clear on what water and wastewater is versus general fund, because the general public mostly, they still don't understand that. So the more we just try to mesh it all together, the more confused we make the general public. And I just am sharing that, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I would disagree, right? Because to me, and I would love to see a contrary definition, because this is a statement that is broadly using it across all levels of government, but is the job of government to provide timely, reliable, to provide services to the residents. That's what we're elected to do. They don't care which fund it's coming from. Our delivery of service, of roads, of sewer, of water is substandard across all of them. And that's all I'm trying to draw our attention to.
But I think Tammy is making a valid point that the delineation of, when you're speaking about revenue or think about revenue streams, or, you know, the way that things are charged and paid for and costed, we do very much have to delineate between the general fund and the water and sewer funds. Because there is legality around, quite a lot of legality around the water and sewer aspect of
We
city
can't make the
services.
money off of our.
Okay, I thought we were brainstorming.
No, that we're having discussions within the brainstorm.
Yeah.
But I do think that part of the strategic planning and part of, you know, us discussing this and being representatives of the city is also getting clarification at this table of, you know, how we are communicating within city meetings, within city discussions, and then how that trickles out to how we're communicating with the community. So while this is group thinking and discussion, it is a learning opportunity as well for, you know, incumbent council members and new council members to, you know, start changing the dialogue so that we are properly communicating with amongst each other and with our citizens. So we can start to, you know, clarify some of these discussions. And so while, yes, as elected, you know, officials, as a city, supplying those services, you know, at a level at which we are charging for them. So part of the fee assessments, of course, looking at the general fund permits, fees like that, but in process already in the Public Works Department, just so you know, for strategic planning, is doing an audit of the water and sewer fees at this time before we go into the next budgeting cycle is already on the list for the Public Works Department. So we are working on that at this time. And just to kind of put a pause on this discussion real quick, one of the outcomes after this discussion will be department head work plans, is the next phase from this. So kind of taking some of our strategic plans, our SIC topics, and giving guidance to staff of where we're headed, and then also having staff come back with department head work plans for this year. So this is a great kind of tie-in to look at, you know, what does that water and sewer plan look like? It does, you know, include an audit already for those water and sewer fees being currently charged and what we will need to charge moving into the next budget cycle. So going back to looking at, let's kind of focus on revenue for the general fund at this time, because that's the relevant aspect of where revenue discussion can happen. So from what I'm hearing from the group is kind of the already established revenue streams, creating, you know, more clarity on the adequate, you know, what those already are. And then kind of let's go back to how we can explore other revenue streams and what that looks like from a planning level. So is that a workshop? Is that individual council presentation of ideas to myself or department heads? How would you like to kind of facilitate the exploration of revenue streams in a short and mid and long-term kind of range perspective? That's what I'd like to get clarity from council from.
For each department, we should know all the revenue streams.
I mean, I would say maybe that is a separate session, only because I don't know, you know, the time this morning, but, and obviously there are legal consequences, you know, restrictions on what you can and can't do, and it'd be interesting to learn more about, you know, what the parameters are there, but,
Yeah, it would be great to see just different, like with different businesses, the taxable income, right, that we would get as a city from, if we put in another housing development to a 50-unit apartment building, the taxable income on that, or just understanding the scope of like what is going to weigh on our environment, but also what brings in money, like just understanding like, okay, we need money, but also like infrastructurally, like how much would that cost if we do this, but if we,
So what I'm hearing is a potential like revenue workshop.
Yeah.
Or, you know, revenue group thing kind of.
So I think what might be productive would be to do like a training session on budgeting basics, how things work.
Yeah.
And then you guys come back at the next, another workshop with, now that you know the parameters, you know your confines.
Great. Thank
How
you.
Yeah, and this feels kind of, you know, when you look at kind of the timeline of the year before we go into the budgeting season. So this is a pre, you know, 2025, 2026 budget discussion. That way we could kind of have those robust discussions before we go into discussing what the next budget looks like.
The area of city,
That's for your
the
asset
area-
management, right?
excuse me, the Idaho Association of Cities has an excellent budget workshop program, and
And they will bring people here to
Yeah.
Bellevue to help you in that, your own workshop,
Oh, great.
with legal people and infrastructure people.
Yeah.
They have great services.
and the members.
We are, yeah.
I'm gonna go hang out with them.
We'll be there next week, yeah, so I think, you know, that is something that we already utilize within kind of our information, and that's a great idea of, you know, adding that into that training, budgeting kind of basics. I think that's a great way to focus the revenue discussion. And in my opinion, that's looking at alternative revenue services outside or options outside of what we already have existing. So, okay. Great.
Does the city employ anybody to, is there specific grant writing and jobs to seek out grants and find grants and stuff like that?
We had a meeting yesterday with the Frontier Community something or other, Twin Falls, or the Regional Economic Development Organization. One of the services they provide is grant writing and grant assistance.
And I'm specifically thinking of somebody that's job is to just keep their eye out for grants.
Yeah, so
It
that's
literally
what-
is, yeah.
That would apply to our city.
Yeah.
And
So with a simple, with a membership, you know, we're kind of within that network. But yeah, we had a really quite successful meeting with them yesterday around a lot of information about, it was more focused on community and economic development grants. So,
But no, there is no one hired here specifically to be
Yeah.
looking out, like that short answer on that.
yeah,
I do some occasional surfing, that's not.
yeah, that it's kind of falls on you a little bit.
Yeah.
And Kristen does her round at the library.
okay, Tom.
I mean, this is one that maybe gets added to your comments about the Main Street sort of safety. And I think that's a little broader, my perspective. And maybe it's kind of safe routes to school, or it's safe routes to the bike path from, you know, Broadford Road, for example, or down Broadford Road. I see a lot of traffic at that intersection. And so there's a lot of pedestrian there. I also see a lot of pedestrian traffic kind of up at Spruce Street. And think, oh yeah, if they could get from Main Street to the bike path, that at least gets them off Main Street. So that's kind of a corollary or similar to
I
the.
have one to add on to yours,
Me
the
too.
sidewalks for a growing community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I guess, kind of related to that, some years ago, there was a grant that I thought was issued to the city of Bellevue for work on Pine Street. And it seemed a little unfortunate to me that it was exclusive to Pine Street, instead of maybe the first block of every street or something, you know, I mean, some alternative, but does anyone know anything about that? I mean, it seemed
We
like.
didn't get the grant, they applied for it, but in the transportation, if we didn't prioritize, we didn't get to be prioritized, so we didn't get the grant. They did work to put it together, and because Pine Street is the main collector street in the whole city, like people will drive, they did a survey and people will drive from I watched it yesterday, but people drive from other streets to Pine, to come down Pine to the city. So it's one of the main, it is the main collector, plus it goes all the way out. They named 3 other, I forget what other.
Chestnut.
Spruce, yeah.
And there's one that was coming down Elm Street associated with Strayhorn as a
So
collector.
there were a couple
Pine
other-
Street as a collector.
But yeah, it's collectors, but the main collector was Pine Street, and that's why that one was delineated to receive the funds. But it was part of the bigger transportation plan. It wasn't just, oh, all the people on Pine Street are gonna benefit. It was part of the bigger plan that this was where we could get the grant for. But because of our lack of having a full transportation plan and other things in place, we didn't, when ITD prioritizes it, we didn't that was my good.
I also.
Stay tuned on this topic for the next council meeting. That's
Okay.
gonna be-
But there was also another, the urban renewal district, there was work planned specifically to your point too, Tom, and what you guys are saying for the Broadford Road,
Broadford,
yeah,
like a walking.
yep,
path.
especially because of that was a big thing too, especially because of the mobile home parks down there. And so that's what I put on here, like kind of reprioritize what our borough are, align them with what we need for the city to provide
Great one,
services to the city.
great one.
Right, yeah, I think that like thinking about the growing and like people using transportation or making it more walkable, or like as the community is growing, you know, having the main, you know, pine, elm sidewalks all the way straight down, so there's safe, walkable, and for people to use transportation, because why would they use transportation if they can't walk to transportation? Or I know it's harder in the winters, but if we're thinking about increasing bus ridership, if we're thinking about that path, like, and especially, yeah, I mean, having kids walking around on a whole bunch of streets that aren't there's no sidewalks or safe, and the whole idea is like, oh, there's never been sidewalks in Idaho, and I'm like, okay, but we are a growing population with more cars on the road, like, we're just waiting for a fatality, and then that will change behaviors really quick. It'd be nice to be ahead of that.
The transportation plan will encompass that.
Great, great.
Let's hop around.
We have the water one up there already, don't we?
Yeah.
Clean, safe, reliable, sustainable, affordable, usable, as in pressure water. Right, services. I mean, that's my job. What are our services?
We're kind of flushing out the category then.
Long-term trash goals that are affordable, I did a kind of inventory and walked the streets with the county commissioner back October, November. But, you know, people are going to get dumpsters because their weekly trash service or their monthly bill is more expensive than having a dumpster at their house, which is also an issue if we have bears in our community.
And
So-
rats is a big problem for the folks by the park with those dumpsters.
Right, so it's like, so figuring out how we actually, you know, if we create a plan, where we are with just our trash and consumption in our valley, and if we don't start recycling more, what that's going to look like for our carbon footprint, making another landfill is just going to increase our CO2. So coming up with, I think, collaborating, working with the county, Atkinson, building material thrift in the city of Bellevue, a collaboration, like how we start recycling and what's actually like looking into what those opportunities are. There are opportunities and we could get funding for it, but we have to kind of figure out plan to pave the way on that. So I'm interested in looking more into that.
Just as an aside, the build a material thrift, but even in the bigger picture, there is the 5B can. And I've been an active member of it, and their mission objective really is looking at the circular economy for the most part, which is inclusive of environmental impact and
Right.
ecological.
And
impact
Bellevue's
and-
part of that. We signed on to that last year, so it's more like, okay, if we're part of it, what are we implementing and how are we being part of that solution? So, yeah.
It's just out of curiosity, because I've been talking to some folks about, and actually we contacted one of the senators about residential gray water. Is that part of this initiative as well, when you talk about the environmental? Are they working on that as well, do you know? Residential use gray water systems? I was just curious if you
I'm
had
trying to
heard about
remember.
it.
I don't know.
Other-
I would just
Anyway,
wanna
please
ask
talk.
them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't recall what other components there.
Tom?
Speaking of water, the water meters, and I know that's maybe imminent but I'd say water meters are a priority. And then maybe this is an opportunity to kind of talk about sort of strategic plans a little more generally so the short term is water meters, operational. The medium term is kind of water conservation, right? That's apparently the point. And then the even longer term goal, which other things would fit into, would be sustainability, and that's trash and that's other things, but just sort of a general strategic plan category, long term of being sustainable. So that kind of maybe is what I view as kind of the three categories of a strategic plan. But the focus in the immediate term is on water meters.
Yeah, I also want to tag on to that with you, Tom, is like future building and how like the requirements and how people build for landscaping and conserving water, because I don't think large lawns are in our future if we're wanting to keep our water, like requirements, I think is important for like zero scaping and how you do that, because the amount of water lawns use, like that's our drinking water.
Would add for future building, it sounds like with the focus being in the landscaping side of the future building?
Yeah, so like part of the code, like if you're going to build, you know, let's say all new housing developments, I would recommend their front yards all be zero scaped, and if you want your, you know, if you want your grass yard, then you're gonna have to pay a fee or something along those lines.
but certainly in the effort to conserve, as you're
Right.
saying, with existing residents, then we would not look to use our existing water for huge additional developments, right? We're
Correct,
not,
I'm talking about future, like if, so like if the big housing development comes in, that new future plan says this is, like, if you're going to build here, you're gonna pay a fee if you want your backyard to be grass, and you're going to do your front yards all zero scape
or
within a
hopefully
requirement.
mandatory gray water systems, if we could get that through, right?
Which I guess if you have metering, then you
What
can
do you,
get a
what do you mean
sense of
like
the
great water system? I mean,
cost.
like if you're,
From your
Not-
home.
Yeah, so like, for
so
example,
if it's not
I did
toxic
zero
or
scape
stuff, so
myself
then
on
you
one
let it
side of my
go
yard.
into your.
Well,
Water.
so there are
Yeah.
systems, and I don't know if
Clean
you know, but
water every
Australia
3 days.
has like 7
It's
different
beautiful,
layers of
yeah.
water usage, and gray
All
water
native
is typically for lawns. They
And
use up in
so
Sun Valley for
with
almost
those
all
things,
their
but it's just like the amount
landscaping
of
is
water,
gray
just
water.
like one line
And it's part of why we're able
It's
to
just-
release gray
and I
water
know
from your
if you have
system, is
meters
that
and
it's
you
legal, but I
increase
don't
it.
believe, I think Senator Taylor's looking into it
But I
about
mean,
for
like, what's
residential use.
happening
And
in
it is
California,
something that,
right, they have all.
you know, I'm into
farms.
microeconomics and
And then
micro, so you
these
take care of,
firehouses, they
you
have
know,
no
you want
water.
better use of water. So
I
you
mean,
still
it's
get
so
to enjoy your
complicated. I'm just
landscaping, you
looking
still
at,
get to do
like,
those things, but it processes through a certain filter.
Population and.
So even in Australia, that black
Longer
water, I
term.
think is the end, you can't really reuse it, but the rest of it, 7 different
Yeah, I
layers, same
think I
thing
see
with
that.
Austria. So some, especially in Europe,
You know,
it's
one
far
of
more
the things
common.
you guys, you're kind of talking around is a big project that Brian's gonna have to get a handle on is we have our comp plan needs to be
Well, that, yeah,
done.
that's,
And-
yeah.
And
And
that
it's the land of
process-
stickies.
and that
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
takes in quite a
lot
bit
of
of some of
this.
this stuff
Yeah.
too,
Right.
because
So
that's
that,
where you wanna set your priorities, so when you look at your developments that come in and say, and when you write your ordinances, you know, you can say, well, we wanna prioritize water conservation.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, tying that all together, it sounds like water conservation is a theme I'm hearing coming through. I think there's some semantics. to
Yeah,
kind of
no,
go down
that's
within
the
that. And
sustainability.
then, both Diane and myself had written on a sticky note, the comprehensive plan. So getting that started in 2025, knowing that that's a process. But, you know, we're talking about a lot of future stuff here, and that, really does tie back to kind of the comprehensive plan, which, you know, upon review is missing some of these sections for, from what it has been to what it could be, so putting that as a priority.
Hey, Tom, did Glenn County ever finish their comp plan?
Yes,
Been working on it
yes,
for
is
10
the short
years.
answer. It was a long process. That's why I kind of chuckle a little bit on that, but yes.
Okay.
And I
Kind of a long process. Holy cow.
Well, you know, don't tend to overstate, but and maybe a distinction between a comprehensive plan, which is focused on the land use decision-making, and kind of this strategic plan, which is, you know, maybe a little broader in scope. The comp plan is sort of a subset maybe of a broader strategic.
Diane, you had some of that?
Yeah, I think, you know, as we move into revising the comp plan, I think we're really going to have to take a look at the chapter that is implementation, because we spent a lot of time drafting that back in 2016, 2017. And there's a lot of those things in the implementation section of the comp plan that haven't even been addressed. So it's kind of like that list of priorities is already there. But I definitely think we need to revisit that as we move into the comp plan, definitely.
I want to touch a little bit on what we kind of discussed about the comp plan, about, you know, there's ways in which to go about it for these, like, you know, 10, 20-year ones, and then there's kind of shorter window comp plan approaches.
As far as doing like a smaller update versus a whole
Yes.
new plan, yeah. So
Yes.
you can approach it either way, and that'll be something we'll discuss.
We'll kind of dive into is, you know, looking at the comp plan, knowing that it was done 2016, 2017, but it has some gaps, you know, are we doing more of a slightly shorter term revisement of our already existing comp plan versus a large overhaul, and kind of looking at timing of how we'd like to kind of progress on that. So when we're looking at comp plans, you know, it doesn't always have to be a 10-year project to get it, to bring it to the table, you know, looking at it as a slightly more succinct thing that could happen more often.
Like a living, so it becomes a living document, so that then we're continuously representing it and then continuously achieving things. It has its milestones, it has its objectives, and we use that in our planning and we use it in our budgeting, right? So if we're gonna budget, and I just wanna share this, I know ideally we have a certain amount of money, but I think doing this, then our budget should reflect what we say are our priorities. That's really the key to budgeting, right? And it'd be so nice to see the city of Bellevue start a budgeting cycle with what we collectively come out with, saying these are our priorities, and we know that the citizens want them also. And then we reflect that in how we budget our departments and how we budget our.
You've nailed it on the head, the intention, right? Here, and then also, you know, looking at comp plans and letting them be a little bit more of a living, breathing thing, transition of leadership, also allowing the comp plan to kind of be a guide that can carry through with transition of leadership rather than something that hasn't been referred to much.
Yeah, and then the tone changes every single time.
Mhm.
It shouldn't,
Not
ideally,
as dramatic.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
When you should do your comp plan, I think it's a minute, like every census, because there's a chapter in the comp plan on basic demographics and how that changes. So
Yeah.
it's usually pretty good.
Well, and I think
Particular to, you know, when this new census comes out, it's usually a pretty good time to start thinking about your comp plan.
you, in terms of this desire, and we all share it, for better budgeting and a more real time, that is also part of what ClearGov gives us through Clear Plans, is specifically for strategic planning, and we did get the budgeting module, which now is exactly the fodder that's been lacking, right? Where you have to move things, you can't hide them anymore on a PDF. They're all there for us to analyze and be accountable for, right? So exactly what you're talking about is what we all embrace, you know, in selecting that tool. So I had one, housing security for residents. Does everyone know what I mean by that? Okay, so not making their monthly costs unaffordable through our decisions of increases in fees or changes in our environment that impact their ability to insure their homes or get services at their homes and things like that.
Tell me on the front of that.
I guess I saw on the city's website about, the council will be discussing on a future agenda, not accepting park reservations. Now, I don't know if that's been on the website for a while, and just kind of, you know, I know how websites sometimes don't.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Good catch.
you know, it says the city of Bellevue is currently evaluating the health of the soccer field and softball fields. We're also in the process of determining how to mitigate the parking problems that occur on those parks who are used at the same time. For these reasons, we're currently not accepting park reservations. The council will be discussing this on a future agenda.
And that's on the website right now.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff that was copied
Yeah.
over, but if you
Okay.
dig down.
And so I guess maybe it's kind of the general park reservation, but you know, the broader kind of
Because they were, you know, just
keeping track
transferred
of
over.
Yeah.
parks and how they're
in the old,
citizens and.
now we know to look. We won't transfer.
So to focus the discussion back, so looking at, kind of, I think there's a lot there, kind of health of the parks, community utilization, and then city management.
So
Yeah.
if we're going with parks, I keep on hearing skate park from community members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Skate
Yeah.
park?
The skate park, it's just their park, and they're like, Jessica, how do we do this? And I'm like, a capital campaign.
And I'll get on the bus and go to Haley.
You take that on.
that, it actually ties a little bit back to the community economic development meeting we had with the grant writer. There's a lot within that category that ends up falling into parks and health and wellness for the community. So if that is something, you know, looking to pursue in terms of parks and the health and wellness of the community, I think there's great grant opportunities out there for that. So
Great.
not necessary.
Well, and
Yeah.
I actually know someone by chance from previous, like, years ago, who went around the world and started a movement of building skate parks, but they do a lot of work and do presentations for the cities and what it provides with community connection, and so.
I think my, asset management thing goes with all of those, like parks and all that.
Can I add on a more accountable Bellevue, just in general, from citizens?
Yeah.
And council? One thing that I continuously run into, it's either my way or the highway. That's the rule for you, it's not the rule for me. My dog can run around, your dog has to stay here. I can water my lawn at 5 p.m. You know, like there's like a mentality here that I feel like there's just been
Equal application law.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen them.
Yeah, just like, yeah, the ordinances, or, you know, establishing like, this is not, you know, and we've had, you know, general conversations around, yeah, there's a lot of new people moving in our community, and Cowcatcher, everybody's from out of state, and I've had to tell multiple households, hey, you can't snow blow into your yard, or hey, like, did you know about your trash can, or, but, so it's the communication, but also all holding each other accountable, but showing up for each other as well, instead of pointing the fingers at everybody else.
And I think that's something I had, you know, thought about and spoken to a little bit was when I talk about accountability, yes, I talk about accountability coming from City Hall, which I think is what we owe as citizens, but also how does that then trickle out within the community and community members being accountable as well, you know, applying for your fence permit, you know, getting your encroachment permits, making sure you have your business licenses and, you know, compliance in terms of on those, you know, government levels, and then as citizen accountability and what that looks like. So if we kind of refocus that from, you know, the internal city view, what can we be doing? How can we support citizen accountability? And what does that look like? Does that look like more education and communication? Does that look like, you know, kind of thinking through that from a strategic level, how from City Hall standpoint can we promote more citizen accountability?
Model the behavior.
That is one of
Which
my
is what you're
concepts.
doing,
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we are
exactly.
doing with all these systems, so I'm just saying that
Starting
starts
from the
there, right?
inside, model the behavior from City Hall, of course,
They
right?
need to see.
And then what's that next layer of accountability? Because I do think that is a very important subject to kind of focus on the citizen level. And, you know, part of that trickles back to us of equal application of the law, equal application of, you know, fees, equal application of kind of all of that. And then, you know, what does that look like in terms of our role in education and or holding citizens accountable? So that I would just put that back to the table to think a little bit further on how we could apply it.
Continue. I mean, obviously, a good start, you've got your newsletter going out and start, you know, continuing to educate, have a portion of that newsletter to be inclusive, like before it's time to water your lawn. You know, the more people see things and hear things,
Right.
the more likely they are to recall them, what have you, and to know that it isn't just a neighbor being a PIA, it is, these are real rules, you know, these are things. You're not supposed to blow into the street. You're not supposed to, you know, we live in a community, and as we are trying to be have a micro sense, we are still connected in the macro way. And so we can't just say, this is just my arena, so.
And something that I think Jessica actually spoke about, I don't know if this is silly or if we've seen it in other cities, but you know, when someone moves to the community, often the first step is to establish a water and sewer account, right? To start receiving services or a bill. Is there a welcome to Bellevue packet?
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
You know, welcome to Bellevue packet that just kind of has a little bit of you know, community member
It's awesome.
expectations or, you
Code
know,
of conduct
rules and
and-
regulations of living in this small
Right.
community.
And I
And the
think,
benefits. the
and I
things
also
that-
think like the one thing I hear is, language that I commonly hear, my Idaho, my Bellevue, my house, my community, and starting to change it, you know, our community. And
Not, I'm not gonna say
Our-
our house. Not gonna say-
no, not
I
our
believe
house,
in the
but
value
like,
of the
you know,
individual.
our street, this is our street, this
Yes,
is our community, this is our town, this is our main street, like, because, some of the feedback I've gotten, like, the rules and being scared and the change, and it's like, okay, well, like, why not refocus on what's ours and how to make it, like, not, like, our Bellevue is great, but like, how can we really make our Bellevue better?
But I think when you're referring to the rhetoric, I think there's, you know, pride elements there.
Yeah,
And which isn't always detrimental, but
Right.
also kind of creating a little bit more community collaboration. So, you know, asking citizens to kind of participate in the betterment of Bellevue. And so that's generally kind of part of looking at the strategy is, you know, of course, people want to see improvements in streets, want to see these things in their parks, but what does that take? Does that take more monetary contribution? Does that take more citizen accountability and kind of looking at as we're
Or even volunteerism.
volunteerism? Yeah.
Okay,
right.
what opportunities exist for that?
I mean,
Community engagement.
right, and so I've been working on trying to build volunteers here, working community and like having that opportunity to volunteer. A lot of people don't have it even if they want to, but providing a tool that makes it easy for them to then volunteer or show up for. Yeah,
per the point of how this trickles down though, is I think there's a very well-established philosophy and it's been proven and it's really out of law enforcement, but it's the broken window philosophy. And when you look across the street or you're driving up and everybody's sprinklers are going on the wrong time, and so you don't see enforcement there, and you see this is left out, and you see behaviors that are not, why would you do it? Why would you bother? When you see things, and so part of what we're talking about is enforcing what we want to see so that other people don't see the broken window. I mean, they have studies. If there's a broken window,
Right.
they start breaking other windows. It's just the nature of the beast. So that is
Yeah.
part of what we've all talked about with
Enforcing, but
ordinances,
also helping.
enforcing.
So I just wrote down
Yeah.
code enforcement because I know it's been a topic that's come up.
Yeah,
And I think that's kind of part of, you know, I said, what can City Hall do?
right.
To, you know, help aid in accountability? Well, code enforcement is part of what we can
It
do.
inspires better behavior.
Along with these other tools we're talking about, but I think code enforcement has come up and I wanna bring it back into the accountability category. I think that's an important place for
When you
Sometimes
have
that
a
can-
police force, I'm sorry, Tom.
Only that can mean that, someone's paying attention a little bit to water use or, you know, other things, so that people just are kind of aware, well, they are kind of monitoring. That doesn't have to be like, you know, code enforcement, you know, everything you do that's wrong gets a fine attached to it or something of that nature, but it can be, we're paying attention to these things and they matter to us.
I think code enforcement also comes, you know, when we look at achievements from 2024, staffing with department heads allows us to, you know, within the category of what those codes fall into. So is it public works, is it community development, you know, having department heads aware and able to kind of monitor code enforcement and then working on the system of application of code enforcement. I think we need to kind of make sure we have all those systems in place to close the loop, because I think there's still a gap in code enforcement that needs to be addressed internally on application.
I mean, you've got a basic bare bones police force as it exists. I mean, and you guys can say, we just want you to take emergency calls for people getting beat up and stuff. We don't want you patrolling Main Street writing speeding tickets. We want you out in the community. This is an example, you know, more community policing, which would entail code enforcement, code education type aspects of police enforcement.
I
Are we
also,
getting into the
yeah.
departments?
one of
Because
the
I
other
can go
events that
there.
I did, with neighbors helping neighbors though, it was like a single mother who didn't have the resources to help get rid of those things. And it was like coincided when she was there, she did get an enforcement and she didn't know who to trust and who to turn to. But people just started dumping things on her property because they thought it was just a junkyard. But she works 2 jobs, has 5 kids. She's on her own without that support. But so if we're gonna do enforcement, also provide resources of where they can get help. So like, hey, if they have a car, this is how you can get rid of your car, right? Because a lot of people don't there's people in different circumstances that we all have to realize that we are representing, they do not have the time. And just what can we do to provide education? Like, hey, this is your warning, here's this ordinance, if we know a proper time frame, this will take a week or 2 weeks to get rid of a car or something along those lines, right? If it's not removed, you will be cited. But I don't know if that takes more work on our staff, but it's also for a community who hasn't addressed things for so many years, but also our council just got a pay increase for the first time, and who knows how long. That most council members were paid $50 a month, and the mayor was paid so long. So and not having staff paid efficiently is also probably why we've all ran into these things. We haven't had the attention and the people paying attention to these things. So I just think if we're gonna do enforcement, there's certain things to provide education.
And
I think there's no doubt about a method of enforcement. I don't think anyone, you can go and TP houses instead of doing fee, penalties, as long as that you can come up with a method of enforcement, that there must be a consistent.
Right.
So people see it. Again, the
Right.
broken window, just let's not let broken windows go. How do we make that apparent? And it doesn't always have to be a financial cost. It can be, like I said, somebody TPs your house. Whatever the method is, it should be discussed, right? And rolled out and
make a little note
opportunities.
about resources. To add to
And there's
that
what,
category.
146
And then maybe
nonprofits in the city?
A sub of where
You
you
wanna
see
help
those resources.
Get
being
them.
available.
Let's partner up with them and get them to move the car.
We have.
That's great, but I'm just saying, it's not you shouldn't ask for other residents to subsidize it, but there are ways that we could come up with the service, partnering with other organizations like you guys do. And like you do already, taking a bunch of the things.
So, providing kind of resource information, having just got that to list. Tammy or Tom, do you have another one to put up?
I don't know where this stands, and I know it's not ever a topic that anyone likes to talk about, and I love all the guys, but it has nothing to do with people, right? Our job is provide services, not just, I like Joe and I want him to stay. And so, where has there been any conversation over the viability of consolidating emergency services?
Tammy, can you repeat what you said?
I can say it. The conversation
Thank
around
you.
the viability of consolidating emergency services.
Okay.
Is that something you see as, kind of wanting to be part of the kind of maybe scope of discussions about emergency preparedness? Or do you see that being kind of a separate, just like when we're looking at budget, where do you see that?
I see that as a immediate but long-term strategic position on budgeting. So if we're setting priorities, we have 3 officers trying to cover the city. To Rick's point, we could give them, we could prioritize what we want our law enforcement to be, but also, so it's kind of just looking at that in general, not necessarily just consolidation, but looking at our prioritization of our emergency services. So,
Look at it as a part of
What we
it.
have for officers.
Look at
oh,
consolidation.
therefore now.
Yeah, as part of our analysis, we want to see if that meets our goals, right? Of that
Yeah.
methodology.
Mhm.
I didn't know we had a 4th one yet.
It's okay.
one of, this is very narrow, but kind of, and it's consistent maybe with the events that the city has, is what I perceive as city needing to focus a little more attention on its Labor Day celebration.
This is my last comment, you and I. Great.
You know, I mean, that's been part of Bellevue's thing forever. Labor Day celebration, kind of its event a little bit. Yeah, you know, again, that's maybe a volunteer opportunity for people to get engaged in the parade and get engaged in the event. And I know Sean's been along a part of that kind of effort. But you know, you want people to these events, maybe people to stop and visit, and do things and kind of expands the business opportunity as well. So Labor Day.
Can I add on to that? So for one, like, I feel like, City of Bellevue council members and or staff haven't been involved in the Labor Day parade. Like, the mayor has been involved, but like, participation from council. So the City of Bellevue, our two events are the Christmas tree lighting, which Kristen has been running on her own, and I assisted with. Thanks, is this 2 years? Awesome. I don't know. Yes, no, I assisted this year. Sorry, it's all a blur right now, but like participation, like maybe we could break up and like, you know, like 3, you know, council people can be on the Labor Day, like being part of that. And then 3 on like the Christmas tree lighting. So we're not all, I know everybody's time is volunteer hours and so valuable, but having that also like Hispanic representation and for the Labor Day event, there is no, you know, I asked last year for, you know, can you add on an extra day for the Hispanic community, and that was not included.
You're talking about a music representation? Okay, I was gonna say vendor representation is high.
Yeah,
But
but
music representation.
yeah, just like general cultural representation intertwined, and also standards on our clothes. For that.
Not just all airport trucks. Well, I think there was some discussion too about, you know, here we are talking about Main Street, the event takes place on Main Street.
Yeah.
Perhaps this should showcase our existing businesses rather than lunch trucks that drive in or go on, and it should stay on Main Street. And the focus should be on benefiting the restaurants that are on Main Street and the small
Just shut
businesses.
down Main
and-
Street?
Yeah, well, but I'm saying, like, anyway, so I think you're right, depending on what your goals
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
right? When you state we wanted to reflect better, last year's parade was not widely well received, right? And so maybe just clarifying the purpose of the parade and then going from there with your appointments and.
I could only comment since I do and have done a lot of events in the community. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So we can, if we want to be represented, and I fully support that, and I think we have great opportunity for some of these events that really reflect who we are as a city, and then things that bring commerce, you know, are important to do. But there is a lot of work, and it can't just be led by one person. And, you know, it might be beneficial as we're developing the events committee, you know, that there is, if we want to support it, if Bellevue supports it and underwrites it at all, we should have a little more representation and be part of the planning for it as well.
I think that will come up in next steps a little bit, so.
There should be a dental float to handle all the candy.
Let's get through kind of our last few, for sake of time, let's keep rolling through our last few sticky notes.
Mine's again broad, I think everyone knows I like to go generic, best in class services and delivery. And what I mean by that is, there should be a customer bill of rights. The customers should know what is appropriate for them. These are not uncommon for utilities in other states, other communities, stating what they should expect from the prices they pay for the services that they're supposed to receive, right? So you should know, and they dictate the operation of the department, right? It's like any business, you know, you have requirements for your business, and it drives that your business is open 8 to 5, so it means you have to schedule people from 7:30 to 3 and then 3 to 7 for cleanup or what have you. So the same thing within all of our departments, understanding that they have to get back if there's an incident, and it must be logged and it must be published within 24 hours. If there has to be follow-up, whatever those things are, that we establish better requirements for the services.
You have to say more.
Most of them, I would say, have been kind of covered by others. I mean, this Neighbors Helping Neighbors was just a note. I'm curious to know more about that idea, but, and then some work on communications, which, you know, always just the intention is to help with the image, I guess, and what City Hall does and contributes to the community. And yeah, so I don't have anything additional on my parts.
You have a couple more, Suzanne?
No, just, safety, the one you all tore down, no prescriptive transfer of wealth. And the eraser that broke off.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's been a great, gathering of stickies. Maybe you should put your stickies on with some of the other ones that Brian will stick them in there as additional support. We'll know it was you, peach colored stickies.
I mean, the water bond work, that's. something
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, but that's a thing.
Occurring. It's a
And
very short term thing.
I don't know if this would fall into anything, I didn't write it down, but because of our limited budget, if you will, but our desire to accomplish things that really represent the city and not just for individual homeowners, but people driving through and, coming into the city of Bellevue, then we could pursue more public-private partnerships. I know some of the other cities and I know we do, but that we could pursue that a little bit more as well to help, since we don't have an on-staff grant writer, let's say, we don't, just to help fill in the gaps, like with, and I know it's mine, so I'm not really specifically promoting Neighbors Helping Neighbors, but to the point that we do need support, let's say with community policing, if you will. Is there a way that we could engage other organizations, nonprofit organizations, to help us fill in these gaps and have an MOU with them like we do with transportation and stuff like that? It's just another opportunity.
Is that something you want us to be kind of throw up there, or you feel like it's been done? I'll take a sticky. Yeah, let's do a sticky on that. Diane, anything else to add that you feel like we?
Yeah, I do have a couple things. One of them is upgrades to City Hall. I don't know if everybody has had an opportunity to walk around the building and see how it's being supported. We're also outgrowing City Hall. Our council chambers is, the configuration of it just doesn't work. And so, that's probably a long term and maybe pie in the sky, but boy, it sure would be nice to have a healthy building. And to that end, I attended a Bellevue Museum board meeting earlier, or I guess it was last summer, and they really want some attention from City Hall. Their building also is in dire need of upgrades. So those are a couple things that, are going to be spendy undertakings, but I think we should try and address those as soon as we can. And I will add on to the parks, to the Labor Day celebration. In the last few years, we've really outgrown that space. And I don't know what the solution to that is. But maybe part of, and this all kind of ties together, maybe part of the downtown revitalization in vacating some of those dead end streets is to keep that Labor Day celebration maybe down on Main Street a little bit more, to support our businesses. instead of everything heading up to the park after the parade is over with. I'm missing something.
No, just Jessica keep saying
No,
shut
she
down.
just keeps like, every
Right on
time is
Main
that,
Street.
I like it, but I mean, it's true though, you could even have one
Yeah, and then they
side.
have to go really slow down
Yeah, one
one
is true, but
street,
one
down
half.
one of our dirt roads,
Oh,
right by
no.
branching out, and then they have to go really
Yeah.
slow and park and come to our Labor Day.
Well, great.
parade.
I feel like we've got kind of a solid start. I think what we should do real quick, we should just take a little break here, a little pause. Give Ryan just an opportunity to organize some of these thoughts into categories. And then we'll come back and kind of look through that and start to discuss next steps.
Great.
Just, yeah, so maybe a little 5-minute break.
Candy
2-minute
break.
And then we'll come back and use the rest of our time to focus on next steps. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Drafting an email to Judd because I was thinking, thank you, we're working on updating our documents and policies, but here's what we have from, you know, the law team, right, everything that we have. in the alliance. So just as an overview, letting them know, like, here's this, and then he was sending me part of that.
Cycle.
I know, and that's what a more strategic, don't lose it, moving forward. And expanding our, like, the offerings, you know, like we're talking about, loss isn't just engaged, after loss is engaged. All the, ensure messaging, support people, support their communities, right? And it'd be nice to consider, I think we should look at, especially after yesterday, just even with Judd and the, and the family. And Bodie's mom, and then, you know, Zach's parents, we could get, have having, hosting meetings, talk to Francis.
Oh, I texted her and I said you were gonna be talking her, and I said that about restarting a group. She said, yeah. It is my passion.
That's awesome, and I'd be willing to look for a way to pay her to host that, you know, maybe even $100 per meeting that.
For her to facilitate, yeah.
It's worth it. I mean, it's worth it to me when I think about peer to peer and the support that is not there, that people are leaving town because we don't have it.
And just having her, yeah, also, and she said she's interested in joining the alliance, so that's. So I will send her info on that.
So today, as a priority, I wanna get an application, you know, something, some kind of brief application with, you know, that people can fill out a form.
Like, assist you with my penmanship, but
That's,
I'm working on it.
A whole lot better than mine.
Yeah, very similar.
inclusive and,
We gotta get the ideas out here, as they form.
Do you mind drafting it? And then I can
Yeah, I
just-
did already.
Okay, and
Yeah.
can you
so
send
I'll
it to me?
I know I did send it, but it was, I gave it to you, so it could be.
If it's the forms that I have, then I have it all under the, ID Suicide Alliance. You said, I have 2 different ones.
You know, I need to
You find some old man yoga class.
But this is in a couple months, so.
Okay, so yeah, if you wanna look and revise.
Have you used that Peloton app
Send it
for all
to
the
me.
different classes I have?
No, I haven't.
It's really pretty
Right,
remarkable
right,
because
yeah.
you have a choice of a ton of different stuff. And I don't have a lot of my braggers that are regular.
But we have to agree
Fold
with
it up.
that,
Right.
you know,
But,
and I think,
there's just a lot of,
Well,
yeah, I've heard
we
of
have
a
to
lot of
send it to
different
the steering
teachers, a lot of
committee.
different speeds in life.
yeah,
So
and we
when you're
have to,
trying to get
I
into
do
like,
think
oh,
it's pretty.
That's why I'm using
like
Apple
people
has like an
kind of
exercise.
oh, right,
app.
I'm sure there's somewhere.
They do, I get like, these like their meditation apps.
I liked Bradley.
So
I
we're
just
just
need to
talking
get-
about
No,
it,
I know.
and I'm on
My,
I have a membership.
I know, you know what, so have I just found.
I
biking
pay one
or-
for my secretary,
I still think it's
to go
important.
to,
Like, we're talking
but,
about having some
I never go.
Yeah, never, it didn't really, it didn't work well.
Oh, yeah.
Shelley, how are you?
I
We
walk
can
into
roll
those
those
places and I
out
just
and
kind
start
of.
working on those, we can roll it out and then next
Yeah.
I like to, I like to do
Yeah,
it.
hearing them.
I like cross country, so I like to go mountain bike, cross country, ski, or kind of like try to combine it, something I like to do, and that's, you know, get.
Agree. No, I
Walk my
get it.
There's
dogs
some
every day,
examples of
so.
stuff that.
But I'm not getting any, you
Came up with.
know, I
And
ski a
then
lot.
the
so
other
Get some
priority
forward.
is- And this is.
No, I actually still play soccer, and I usually just play in one big tournament a year, and meet up with my old people. And the last time, I didn't play like 2 years ago, I was nailing it, I just done the BMT, and I didn't fit. And that was only the beat, and went on a soccer run, by Sunday, my feet were, like
That's what I was just
unusable.
saying.
They were so impacted from all the
And
pounding
then
on
part of
the.
the, and
Because
then
they
part of
leaned
that.
vertically and on the right, and I just wasn't, and you realize the cross section.
Well, and your ligaments and stuff.
Yeah, I just, they were so sore,
She's a
but it
part
didn't
of
matter
it,
how much
year she
Advil, I mean,
helps
they wanted to shoot me, looking at me, then they thought, well,
And then she was also
I would go
part of
first.
the-
Well,
And so I really, you know, I played the first game on Sunday, and I was like, man, my
New
new
crisis response team, when they're
unable, they were
Yeah, the older you
That's
get, the
exactly
more you
right.
realize your belief
That was
or any
like
kind of your
100
unique belief sometimes.
Oh, and, yeah, well, again.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I was like, oh my God, I never heard these things. I was so
And then
fit, I didn't have to ever
So I'm
stop. I
starting
mean,
to
I
make
couldn't.
Todd's agenda. He's
My
like,
dear.
he's wanting me to keep track.
It
of
was exciting, like, oh my
people
God.
sending me
Yeah,
things,
the things we
firing
learned,
things
right?
to me. I need to go through it. I told him this morning, I'm like, I'm gonna go through all of it. I'm gonna send you a lot of things, so I'm gonna go through it. But one of those things is, yeah, phone number in that situation because,
Yeah, we need to separate that, so that the
that would be on
cards,
there.
the cards that we give to law enforcement too, will have a 726 number, but it'll say, like, they'll know, and then they, Carrie can update them, she can send out a thing that it says for sudden, unexplained deaths and suicide, that this is the number you call. Because
And the
if it's,
clarification from hospice. from-
well, because at hospice, just a sudden unexplained death, they're not calling out they're not calling out the lost team.
Which we should be.
I know,
Which
so
is
this
gonna be
is,
part of
that's
the
part of the policy.
Yeah.
Exactly, this is part of the policy, this is how it goes, and this is what we need to update.
Looks like Bellevue gonna get some, Jeremiah trails.
Jeremiah, nice to meet you. Welcome to our staff.
Where is it? Did you say?
Lee's
Oh,
home, there's my home.
really? I don't know.
It's supposed to be.
I don't, I
it's out
don't really
in-
know where I live.
Like, I think it's out in kind of about, on the other side of Broadford, the BLM going up to, hiking, biking.
Really?
I think that's still 65 here. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to long term, like sort of connection trail from here to Haley, around.
But yeah, he's one that was working with.
Like, mostly like that. Just new trails.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, I mean, we always have loved that trail out Slaughterhouse, although we're going to Rattler.
Yeah, I think they're trying to connect Slaughterhouse, you can connect Slaughterhouse. Big Saturday.
Yeah,
But it's
it's
an
really
old,
connected.
but it's an old, horrible rutted out, washed out road.
It's interesting to say that my brother was not ecstatic on the four-wheel thing, because he lives up in Indian Creek, and he was like, but his partner's brothers thought it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Because they grew up
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
But my brother was like,
No, so they're supposed to put a single track type trail all the way up Slaughterhouse, you can come out quickly if you want.
that's awesome. I mean, because it's fun to have so they all walked, my mom lives in the Heatherlands, and, so they left Indian Creek with my kid and the dogs and their dogs, and they all ended up at my mom's walking on the trails for Thanksgiving. What's better? Walking up between the community, when you have, when you have the time and you're out on the bike path or.
The bike has fun for
It's
bikes.
fabulous, and for
I love
nothing.
it.
I go up there, I went to that tournament I was telling you about, we had a storm and I don't wanna bother anybody, and I Nordic up, got the rental car, and came home, and then when I dropped it off, I Nordic,
We're gonna be.
right? How do you do that?
No, we know. That's one of the best things they ever did in this valley was take that old railroad grade and, although it would have been nice to have,
For the transportation, yeah.
would have been nice to have.
Yeah. Oh, it's, yeah, it's one of those, you know, they're extraordinary value above.
Any other time.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I love the bike path.
I think it's so cool. I mean, just to have
I
it.
just like not having to drive. I can leave from my house and go mountain bike because they built all those new trails so quickly. It's just really awesome.
No, it's, my son goes to school out there and, I, every time I go on that, just the Quigley Nordic, or, you know, the kids go out on the pump track or whatever.
Yeah, I take the dogs, I call it quickly Nordic, I call that the lower intestine,
Yes.
and then it's the appendix.
Exactly.
And then you come back. But, you know, if you ever get a chance, have you ever been all the way up to the ponds, out to the pond?
Only once.
It's so
Because
beautiful.
I always have to.
In the winter time,
Yeah.
I always have dogs with
So
me,
you-
so I'm stuck in the lower.
That's what I mean, I'm stuck in a dog front.
But every once in a while, my wife will take the dogs out, I'm like, good, I get to go.
Yeah.
Go see.
It's
It's
just,
so beautiful out
it
there.
is, and
I
it's,
put it against anything up north, really, it's so pretty out there.
I love it. And I was just so grateful when we got enough snow down here that we didn't have to drive as fast. With our path, you know, with our path.
What SNRA is like the next closest place I take my dogs. Unless I
Well,
don't
and
like
my-
going on the bike path. I
What's
have
that?
kind of rangy dogs. Yeah, I don't
Just
want
not
my
sure to get back
dog.
in.
You prop it up or not?
I have the exact same thinking, especially we also have this Chihuahua who could sometimes lag behind, so if I'm looking for the Chihuahua, then where's the big one who's the ranger? And I'm not sure he didn't get, you know, into trouble up in NRA, he's white, and I'm looking around, I don't really know where he is.
Did they?
And I'm just like, you know, and even that, one of those, the only trail that
We got
was
one
open early
person in the
on.
bathroom,
was the one
we'll
near
wrap
the
up
road.
conversations
It
and.
was such a nice trail, but I was like, it's just close enough that,
Well, that-
so I don't even like to do
The
that.
Durance one.
Yeah,
is
Durance,
right
yeah,
next- Unless they get a lot of snow, I'm always really nervous when they're.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got two, like,
Like, we have the same type of.
British Spaniels that
Yeah.
just wanna.
I hear, and you don't, they take off so suddenly, they were right with you. And I have beepers, we got trackers, and we got all of it, so, and yet, I was like,
It happens.
and my kids are, so I'm trying to watch
They
it
know
there.
it
They're
happens.
just- I'm like, I'm ridiculous. Yeah, so I'm like, let's just go in deep where, you know, they can.
Yeah, so I like the SNR, I like in the inner. loop
Exactly.
Up there,
Yeah,
except
exactly.
that
Perfect.
scares me in the
Go watch.
river, when the river freezes, I'm afraid the dogs are gonna break through the ice.
I know.
Especially when you cross that bridge. Yeah. I'm always afraid they're gonna get stuck under the ice somehow.
I agree with that
I
as
can't keep
well.
them out, and then it's that one creek that runs up, my dogs will just disappear in it,
What are those?
and they can't, I don't know how to get out, but they'll take off. they'll
Sounds like
just-
my dog and your dog would have a fabulous time together. Really, but I do love the going up to Quigley, where it is, to me, if you're standing on the dog loop, like Quigley, you should be on it if you're not a dog person. It's the one place that is dog intensive.
For everyone
And
on
it's not
Zoom, we
even
just
bad.
have a few people
About, you know, it's not even, but I just.
using the bathroom
the
to
dogs
wrap
run
up.
and
Conversation here and get back to it.
70% of the people are the same way of thinking, and then every now and then you get into one of your stories. Your dog's sniffing, your dog's that, like,
They've got places you don't want dogs.
Exactly, that's why I'm just
Do
like.
the dog, the
What
non-dog.
happened? And you're just like, they're sniffing you about. This rarely happens, you know, really, but when it does, I'm always like.
And most of the
why
dogs
would
are
you
not
do
gonna
this?
run across the room. Every once in a while I run across that people have dogs that probably ought to be muzzled or something, because they're a little bit mean. Mostly dogs on leashes.
Yeah,
And
my
I'm like,
Chihuahua's quite a little growler.
Chihuahuas are the meanest animals in
But
the
he's,
world.
but he's not, he's a noisemaker, because he's a fun police. So no one, his brother should never to have fun with another dog, with a white dog. And he comes running up in his little red jacket, he's only he only has 3 feet. And he takes one of them barking and growling. It's kind of it. It's embarrassing. Oh, trust me, I wish
They're
I'd never
almost all attitude.
stopped and picked him up.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but he's actually, he's super sweet, but I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been desperate.
Yeah, we're just waiting on Jessica and then we're ready to rock. Gonna close the door behind you. Okay, thank you for those on Zoom for your patience. We did a little more than 5-minute break, but we're back to it now. And Brian's gonna kind of review what we put together here.
So I was gonna type this all out and I decided to go super lo-fi. Right on board. So I kind of put these into some buckets. We've got over here, housing security and affordable living. Most popular category, infrastructure and services, community enhancements, accountability, communication, regional collaboration, and then just core foundational decisions. Does everybody kind of think that's the right?
Where's the emergency preparedness? Where did that go?
Our emergency preparedness for the regional collaboration.
No.
Where are you going?
Well, I just wanted to discuss it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say. It seems to me to be a core service that needs to be, and as far as I know, it does not truly exist as a concept. So I think it is infrastructure. Okay, thank you. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't.
No, I think
feed
like,
into
there's a whole spider web.
Yeah, I mean,
going
I
on
get it.
here.
Yeah, that's why I was gonna, but I think to start, we even have to decide, is this something we commit to? And then it would proceed to, how would we implement?
Okay. Diane, do you want me to read those categories again?
Yes, please.
Okay, housing, security, and affordable living. Infrastructure and services. Enhancements. Accountability and communication. Core decision-making and governance. And then regional collaboration.
Thank you.
Nice categories. I mean, that is a really nice.
So from this, let's like a little.
Yeah, so next steps, I'm gonna like formalize this a little bit and kind of write it out. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of assign each of you to be the champion of one of these categories. Sort of does take your desires into consideration, so if you have wishes, let me know, talk to me ahead of time. This you can kind of come up with a plan from there. Things we're gonna be plugging into are committee assignments as far as parks, events, Resort Cities Coalition, community or county projects, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of places we can push your work. And just, I'll come up with kind of some suggestions on how we should put it to use. And then, like Donnie said, we're gonna be working with our department heads to present these categories in a more broad, holistic theme for the year. That will go into how they're kind of prioritizing their work plan for their staff for the next year. And then that'll feed into the budget process as far as what we're prioritizing and help make those decisions a little bit easier. We'll cycle next.
And then to add to that, kind of the presentation of this information that Brian will put together will likely come on our January 27th city council meeting. And then after that, we have our first town hall scheduled on the 29th, the evening of January 29th. And that will be an opportunity to have kind of a community level discussion about community priorities for this year. And just getting, just some open, kind of hopefully open, honest communication from our citizens to see what they see as a priority. And that gives us an opportunity to kind of cross-reference and see how what we've put out here aligns with what's also coming from community feedback.
Are we required to be there for this phone call?
You are not required to be there for the
Okay.
town hall.
Great.
Yes. And also, it may just kind of be more, let's not have a forum at the town hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a more of a citizen-led discussion.
That's here, town hall.
It'll be here. Yes, and that will be republicized. We alluded to it, you know, put a date on everybody's calendar in the first newsletter. We'll make sure that is communicated again in the second newsletter. And also on social and website. And thinking through a potential survey for those who can't attend in person or opportunity for comments, so.
Mara, do you think City Hall is big enough?
For this first one, I think that also without having all council here, I can tighten up the desks quite a bit and create, add more seating for participants who come in.
And if we could even try to do our RSVPs to even get a sense, but.
Yeah, I think that'll be sufficient for, the first time, and, you know, if it isn't for any reason, we can pivot from there.
I really hope we have that problem.
Yeah,
Right,
I'd love to
exactly.
have that problem.
Right, like, I didn't have that problem.
Yeah,
Are we also trying to be inclusive of our Hispanic community in doing this as well? And I'm only sharing, and this is another public-private partnership opportunity where I know the Hunger Coalition just had a meeting with local business owners to discuss some of the things that are happening, you know, nationally, right? And so we could use their, they have space there if we wanted to, we could use their space and use their connections as an opportunity, because we do have a huge Latino population.
A translator would be great.
And then we could make sure to have a translator available. I just think that, like, that's this is a great opportunity for us as well, as we're moving forward as a community, that we are being as inclusive as possible, not just saying I posted this in Spanish, that's not inclusive. I'm just throwing that out there, just in the work that I do, so.
I want to note that if we are looking at accountability and communication category, that I feel like this didn't come up in this discussion quite as blatant as this, so we would write that down and post it, let's add that to that. I
I meant
think
to say that.
it's it happened, there's a lot discussed. So I think let's add that to the accountability and communication category, I think that's really important. I take that feedback, and I think that's something to think about for the town halls and the meetings moving forward. For this first one, I think we'll do what we can in the short term to be as inclusive as possible, knowing that we have room to grow in kind of opening that up a little bit more to more of our community and partnering, like you said, kind of the private public partnerships
I
there.
mean, I can make sure too that, well, there is the library in Haley, they have headsets, right? So we could rent them, and or a part of our Neighbors Helping Neighbors, my team, I can make sure that somebody is here from, you know, them to at that event. So then when we're promoting it also, we can say, we do have that, so that we're not precluding people.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of the people that subscribe to Bellevue Matters and that I spoke to on the campaign trail that are Hispanic are also, you know, not all of them obviously, but a fair number of them are dual language, right? So I think you're spot on, and the website will be translated into both. It is translated, you know, we use a tool for that. So I take your point 100%. I just think as Christina was saying, it's something to aspire to and figure out how to make it work. But we're covering a lot more people than we've ever covered just with the town hall and with the newsletter.
Any other aspects of next steps that you feel like we need to cover?
Anybody have any questions?
Did I get a job?
Not yet.
Oh. I missed it.
Only other question, have we put on our social media that we are doing a newsletter for people to subscribe to? And putting a link to subscribe within the link in bio?
Thank you, Tom. Not yet.
Okay.
I think with the city hall sickness is what I'll call this last week, we got a little behind.
But once you give me the login,
Yeah,
then we can even create a very small newsletter reminder or something like that to folks about subscribing, but.
Okay. Great.
yeah, that's all kind of falls into just adding to the communication.
I will.
Yeah,
follow up.
public
Follow up,
affairs.
Suzanne.
The one thing that I had Brian compile, for us to just kind of go over was identifying what committees are codified.
Yeah, those are.
These are, you know, I have a list of our, really quickly, just
Okay.
back here. Our internal committees that we do have codified.
Okay, sorry.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
Our committee list, we have the library board, planning and zoning commission, parks committee, borough development impact fee advisory committee, and the Labor Day committee, which we have a reference to a resolution for, that we printed out, but it looks like, kind of, that was a,
It was a 2-year deal.
yes.
And to be a temporary thing. Seems like there might be a desire for events committee.
Yeah, and so there are a couple, what we would consider more ad hoc committees or external community committees that I would like to consider bringing internally and doing, you know, a resolution and or ordinance to make them official committees, and the events committee was one of those. So I just wanted to put that on the table and see what, you know, members who have been participating in the events committee thought, and what that could look like for us. Diane, go ahead. Sorry, you had your hand up.
The museum is a committee, or maybe they're a board. Jessica, you might know the answer to that, but
We're gonna have to talk a lot about that,
Okay.
They
are a
yeah,
board.
in a separate meeting.
Yep,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
Could you just quickly run through that list again?
Yeah, of course. Library board, planning and zoning commission, parks committee, borough, development impact fee advisory committee, and Labor Day committee, but I think based on this, it ended at the end of last year.
Yeah.
I don't think we took it any further.
It was a very short.
It was a very short window.
Yeah, because when it was presented to us, we wanted to be sure that
We kept it short.
And maybe that leads to the point, as part of the consideration or not, but one of the things that seems eventually relevant to these is some kind of measurables.
Yep.
Oh, you know, here's maybe a timeline for some, short, medium, long, and then also, you know, are we towards, you know, progressing towards our goal, or no progress towards the goal, you know, there's.
Right.
I don't have too much familiarity, but I
Right.
think with strategic plan, that seems like a relevant component to it.
Clear gov will help with stuff like that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really the reason. And
Yeah.
so a lot of it is just affirming that we all share that desire. So, and we've all voted to say, well, let's make it so.
right.
So with that, I think that, I'd like to add kind of bringing in the events committee as an official committee. And I would like to just consider what category we could put that into.
I kind of put the event stuff in the enhancements.
Okay.
area.
Unless anyone's in direct opposition to that as.
No, I think that sounds great. And,
Who's
Yeah.
that?
Fans of-
Kristen, with the library, I think she would be great to,
We've had
Yeah.
discussions,
Yeah,
yeah, with
yeah.
Kristen directly, so.
great.
Okay, great. Were there any other, just from historic knowledge, our community knowledge, any other ad hoc committees that we're not aware of that we feel, you know, Di had mentioned the museum, but that we feel, you know, weren't identified on the kind of more official committee list or something that we're missing?
We don't really have like a design review committee that's I've seen in most places that I've lived is like the community is part of, like, you know, we're talking about, I know like there's people part of the comprehensive plan, but I don't know if that would be relevant on, you know, bringing people in who have experience to take and help, you know, I don't know if that would be helpful to you in your department and having, you know.
Design reviews falls under the powers of the planning and zoning commission.
Yeah.
And they review it currently.
Okay,
I think that system probably works pretty well as long
Okay.
as they are well trained and informed on.
Right,
They're supposed to be
right,
making decisions.
yeah.
And then something around.
It was more like aesthetically of how things look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And design
You know?
standards and
Yeah.
When we upgraded the wastewater treatment plant, we formed a citizens advisory committee.
Mm.
And I'm just throwing this out there right now, because of the state that is in, would that be something that you think might be beneficial as we're moving forward with the water or wastewater projects, that we have a citizens, or, I mean, I'm just trying to, I know we formed it to decide which one, but it might seem helpful to have something that can support the things that are happening down there and support us moving forward, or.
I think now that we have a public works director position filled that we haven't had in a while, I would lean on kind of progressing to see kind of how the work progresses throughout the year. And it could be something that we kind of put in the back, kind of in our category that we could add into later in the year if we aren't satisfied with aspects of it or feel that it needs more attention or more support in some way, shape, or form. But yes, I think that that's a great tool to utilize when needed. I'm not seeing the need at this time, but it could be something we could definitely collectively consider bringing in later.
I think we meet part of that need with, again, the infrastructure that we're putting in with the operational tools. Because part of what you're talking about is an oversight and examination, evaluation. And yet what we've had, what has been problematic in the past is we have no visibility into anything. So even capable people at the table have no idea what's going on. So I think our first step into the goal, even if we got to that point where there was now internal debate, we couldn't decide, you look ready for some more informed people, but understanding exactly what's going on. And that's what these tools are for the budget line items, for listing all the projects. How has this contract with Merrick been spent? What is the state of this? What is the state of the repayment of the bond? These kinds of things that even then are used even by folks like Shelley saying, Lordy, look at this. I had, this wasn't visible before. And so hopefully bring all that to the surface.
That's why I'm thinking halfway through the year, activating the tools that we've just, that we're gonna put in place on the technology kind of side of things. And then if that's for any reason not satisfactory, revisiting that.
Then you have something to work from, right? You can say, ooh, we gotta look at this.
Okay, great. So, if any feedback, do the categories feel sufficient for everybody now to kind of then task Brian to do this next level with? Does anyone have any feedback on that aspect of it? And please, if something comes up for you outside of this meeting, please feel free to email myself and Brian. I feel like we covered a lot of ground, and it's nice to see all of that put into kind of succinct areas for further discussion. So I think, that kind of wraps us up for this morning and afternoon. And I really appreciate all your time and coming prepared to have this discussion. And I look forward to kind of the work we can accomplish in these categories into the next year.
Thanks for making it easier to participate.
Wonderful. I would welcome a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second from Tammy Davis. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry I couldn't make it in person.
We missed you,
No, it's okay. We
Diane.
missed you.
So much gets lost on Zoom. Can I just say
It
that?
really does. Yeah.
I mean, the acoustics in our meeting room are awful, and it's just really hard. I mean, I was having to kind of try and like read lips most of the time just to understand what was happening, but I am really sorry that I missed it. I think it was a great opportunity for everybody. I don't think we've ever done anything like that, really. So it was a good effort. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everyone stay healthy. I feel better.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get this on first. you.